a day we'll never see again. And thank you for bringing us all together tonight as we get prepared to make wise and promise decisions for this great city. Just be with us and bless us. Bless our first responders, our firefighters, law enforcement, EMS, as they protect us on a daily basis. Watch over each one of us and bless us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Next thing we have on the agenda is visitors' comments. This item is available for those citizens wishing to address City Council on an issue not on the agenda. City Council may not discuss any presented issue, nor may any action be taken on any issue at this time. Any item presented could be considered for placement on an agenda for a future regular scheduled meeting. I have 3 people that have signed up for speaking on visitors' comments. So the first one is Mr. Pullen. Justin, go ahead and state for record name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Justin Pulliam. I'm a former resident of Lake Jackson, and I currently reside on the outskirts of Rosenberg at 8919 Japonica Drive. I'm here to talk about transparency and accountability for the subject of my public comments. Mayor, how many minutes do I have? Is it open-ended?
Well, normally it's open-ended unless you have extended
Okay,
comments.
I'll be around maybe 3 or 4 then.
That'd be great.
So transparency and accountability, it was kind of disappointing to me that we started this evening off with a secret meeting between the city administration and the mayor behind closed doors when we're supposed to be here tonight for the people's business and for the people to be informed about the official acts of the city, and maybe even for the people to provide feedback to the city officials and administration for that to be considered. I have a Facebook post here that has since been deleted from the mayor. He said, hopefully this will, and this is a forward of a city educational message on the process of demolition that apparently is not a well understood process because members of the public are morons. But he said, hopefully this will help address the misinformation that has spread over social media today. If you have a question or concern, pick up the phone and call the city manager, me, or any of the members of city council. If we don't know all the details, we will get them and get back to you. Don't go looking for information by starting a post asking, does anybody know why XYZ is happening? I responded to this post. I said, I called and talked to the city administration midday. They blankly told me I wouldn't get anything today because a single employee is out of the office. I also contacted the city manager today, and he apparently has blown me off. This was a couple weeks ago, and I still have not heard anything back from the city manager. You are pretending to be accessible when in reality your city is one of the worst for stonewalling information. I didn't receive a response back from you, but what did happen is the mayor corresponded with Councilmember Seth via text message. He responded, and I'm presuming in response to my message, man, we have some hateful people around here. Seth responded, I'm not going to back down from Pulliam and Gray. They are not only not doing any good, they are detrimental to our city. I probably should be intimidated, but I'm not going to be bullied by those morons. Now, I read all this because there's a very important point about public accessibility coming in this next text message that I'm going to elaborate on. The mayor said, no, you should not be intimidated. It is hard to decide if it helps their cause by interacting with them or ignore them and just focus on informing people with the truth. And that's the transparency aspect. That's accountability. This city does everything they can do to hide. When I request public information, it is game after game after game after huge fees. You want to go run off to the facts or whoever, Michael Berry, whoever you feel is friendly, and try to spin it. I am a journalist trying to understand what this city does. I probably try harder than anyone to understand what this city does, official acts of the officials and the employees. I call, I get ignored. I email, I get ignored. I ask questions, I get ignored. Yet y'all go out and try to push this pretend propaganda message that y'all are accessible and y'all give information. I'm available at any time whenever you want to start giving information. I want to know what is really going on. I want to report to the people what is really going on. I am happy to have anyone on live. It's time to adopt a culture of transparency and true accountability. Mayor and council, I appreciate your audience tonight. Have a great evening.
Thank you. All right, next we have Mr. John Gray.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you guys doing
Great.
tonight? Good.
Welcome.
Well, let's start off. Ms. Seth, when you decided to bash me in your post, you claimed that I said that the elderly lady only had 30 minutes before they bulldozed her home. I never said that. If you're going to trash me and you're going to bash me, please watch the video first. Because I said I had 30 minutes notice. And you know what I did in that 30 minutes notice? I started a video. At 8:15, I had someone that was watching my video show up with a trailer to help the elderly lady any way they can. It was obviously too late because a mere 15 minutes from then, the house would be started the bulldoze process. You claimed that the city did everything they could to possibly help her. I found in your own text messages the only help that she actually received was a list of contractors. That if she could afford those contractors, you guys would have never been in there in the first place. That's not help. We look in your text message, which I will later post on Brazoria County Scanner on my Facebook page. You say in this to someone on the Keep, I think that she's on the Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful board. I think I could be wrong. I'll verify that before I post it. You say, either that or we have to push forward with shutting down the John Grays of the world. You will not shut me down, Miss Seth. I cannot be shut down. Men with guns have tried to shut me down. People have tried to shut me down. People have assaulted me. People have trolled me. There is nothing you can do as a first-term city council member that's going to shut me down. And I hope you understand that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and that third person we have is Sheen Hunter.
My name is Sherry Hunter. I live at 117 Mesquite. I wanted to come and thank you guys for getting the strips over at the rec center, from keeping everybody coming in and out. I go like at 6:30 in the morning just, to make sure little people are safe over there. And it's working. They're learning to park on the other sides and not come in because they were barricading it at first so that they couldn't come in. And now when you put them up the other day, it's seeming to work. So I wanted to thank you guys because it keeps our little senior citizens safe. They don't have to worry with all the traffic coming in the morning. So I just wanted to tell you thank you, and we appreciate it.
All right, thank you. All right, anybody else on visitor comments that didn't sign up? All right, we'll move on to presentations. A presentation on the water modeling with Kent Professional. Dusty, you want to lead in on this? Or?
Yes, Debbie's going to introduce Sunil. She's worked with him for the last year plus on this project. And I think also in front of you, you have a water modeling report, but Sunil's going to probably try to condense that in 5 slides for 1 year's worth of work.
So, good evening, council. Tonight I wanted to introduce to you Sunil Kamini and his partner here, Varanya, and they have done an awful lot of work on the water modeling for the city. We are now we've accepted this, and we wanted to let you guys know how we're going to use it and basically what it is. So they're going to go through just a few slides, just briefly, so you can get an overview of what's going on and how we'll be using it in the future. So with that, Sunil?
Yeah, dear Mayor and Council members, I'm happy to give you all a quick update on the Dynamic Water Model project. So what is a water model? It's nothing but it's a digital tool that mimics your real water system in the ground. To develop the water model, we bring in the inputs. Inputs include water plants, the pipelines, all the infrastructure. We work with your operations staff and put in the operational controls information And we also weave in the water demands. This is how much water each customer in the city is using. Once we layer in all this information into the model, we use the model to predict things like water pressures in the system, the water quality, or water travel times. I have a few examples that I'll go through. The key components of a water model include all the pipelines that are 6 inches or greater in diameter. We have all your wells in the system, your groundwater plants, your surface water supplies, your ground storage tanks, elevated storage tanks, and as I mentioned earlier, your customer demands. Everything is weaved into this one model. Let me give you an example of an output from the model. Each dot represents a computation that occurs around a node, and this is your system-wide water pressures. Under average day demand conditions, your pressures seem to be between 45 and 50 psi, which is pretty tight range for your system. You're maintaining really good pressures in your system. The state minimum requirement is 35 psi, and none of your system areas get into that minimum pressures. So there's no red dots anywhere. Water travel times. This tells you how long it takes the water to leave your water plants and get to your customers. According to this graphics here, that's an output from the model, it's taking approximately 1 to 4 days. The shorter the travel times, the fresher the water is, the water quality will be higher. Using a water model, you'll be able to cut back on the travel times in the future. But right now, it's between 1 and 4 days, which is not bad. Another key output from a model would be something called zones of influence or service areas. This is to know which water plant is supplying which area. Your 2 large water plants, the Oak Drive and Beechwood, pretty much supply 80% of your system. Oak Drive is in this brown color, Beechwood is shown in blue color. And then the small wells, the well 15 and well 17, have smaller zones of influence or service areas. In the event there is a complaint or some issue, operations staff can use maps of this nature and quickly troubleshoot to know which plant is supplying this particular area. So there are many other uses that Debbie, Sal, and others can use this water model for. For folks that are in the engineering group, they can use it for right sizing of the infrastructure. By that I mean getting the right pipe sizes in the system. If you build 2 big pipelines, your waterage could go up. Operations staff can use it for pressures, looking at pressures, zones of influence. And eventually the goal is to build a near real-time model called digital twin. In a digital twin, you're tracking your on-the-ground operations with a little bit of a lag. With like 30 minutes, you should be able to simulate what is going on in the ground. But that's the ultimate goal. It takes a little effort to get there. With that, I can take any questions.
Well, again, this model's already helped us with some of the issues that we've had on the north
Right.
side of town. And so it's proving its value. And every time now since we have the model, I think we've had examples of where it's been a positive tool for us. I'm looking forward to some of the new things that can be added to it. Just, for example, is that eventually we'll get to where we have all our valves and stuff in there so that we can, again, if we have an issue in a certain part of the city, we'll know almost instantaneous what area of the cities will be impacted by a meter break or something like that.
Oh, yes. Certainly, Mayor. Any main breaks, if you want to know how much outage you will have, if there's a pipeline break, a model will help you. If you put all the hydrants and valves, you should be able to do flushing plans and sequences. Yes, there's a lot of benefits.
I know one of the things that we're working on, again, on the north side of town is the flushing. We're looking what we do the flushing.
Yes. My colleague here, Mr. Mehta, Varanya Mehta, is actually working on that
Spanish Oak.
Spanish Oaks area. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so the water modeling on that specific, issue, it was very enlightening to, look at the model and look at different scenarios of, how do we lower the age of the water and, two small subdivisions, and they can tell us by changing the pipe size from 6, does that have a positive or negative effect on fire, fire suppression in there? 8-inch versus what we have is 12-inch, and that has an effect on water age where, it's, in the past, it's been a little bit of a guessing game. And then on the next phase of Northwood,
Yes.
by looking at, on phase 4, just looking what was proposed, the water modeling helped us prevent making the same mistakes as we've done in other subdivisions by oversizing.
Correct. Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question, unless I'm misunderstanding. On your slide 4, when you talk about the water age, you said that most of the water is supplied by the Beechwood subdivision. And I'm looking at the dark red area, which shows this area closest to it, showing a water age to be 4 days. So why would that be?
Yeah, this is it includes the storage, like the water plant's storage facilities, both the ground and elevated storage tanks. So that's one of the areas where Mr. Mehta and I will be focusing on how to minimize that water age and improve the
So
cycling.
is
in the
that due
tanks.
to because of elevated storage, the retention time in pipes is greater?
Correct.
Okay.
And the tanks.
And ground storage tank.
Yeah.
It's kind of misleading because when you
Yes.
when you think of the point of distribution,
Yeah.
you would expect the shortest time
Yeah.
during that period.
Usually the higher ages are on the fringes of the system, right?
It is,
ex-
you would, I mean, that's a very good observation, because you would think it would be
Yeah.
just as light as Oak Drive.
Right.
Right, because you're in the center, towards the left of the Beechwood subdivision, substation, you would think that area should be lighter color.
Yes, this yellow.
Yeah, this area here would be lighter
Yeah.
color, so,
This is one of the things we are looking into as well.
okay, thank you.
Were we able to plot, like, our fire hydrants and flow rates on those with this study?
Yes, we can, as Modesto mentioned, we will be able to see how much flow comes out of each hydrant and at what pressure.
Or you already have something like that, Deb?
Yes,
We have something like that.
Okay, cool.
Sorry. We have that plotted through firehydrants.com, and it's already a layer that we're using. So every year they come in and they test half the fire hydrants in the city, so every other year they get tested. And then we track and plot that data.
But if we're also,
So-
if we're gonna make changes, we can see how it affects the fire pressure. So on
Yes.
Spanish Oaks, when they were looking at it, we were looking at, because the line is so big, it affects the water age, they were looking at different sizes, to reduce the line, and at some point in time, too small improves the
Affects that
age, but
fire.
it affects the
Right.
firefighting capacity. So we don't wanna make a mistake there.
I just didn't know if, we may already do it, but if we could utilize that plot mapping to help the fire department be able to see, a hydrant layout and pressures on the different we do that at work. And
Yeah.
it seems it's something new we've implemented. It's really neat, so.
Okay.
I was just curious if we could try and
We
find a
do
way to
have
do
that
that.
layer, and we have shared that. I think possibly some have it and some don't. Some may not be aware where it is, but we do have that plotted already so
Okay,
that they
awesome.
can see that.
But if you can follow up with
Yeah, I
the
can.
fire chief.
Or I
on
will
that.
and get
Yeah,
with
okay.
Will and all that.
Okay.
And-
Okay.
So the frequency of, excuse me, you done?
No, you're good. Thank
The
you.
frequency of fire hydrant flushing, would this improve the
Yes,
retention time?
so with what he's done for us now, we can take that data and say, you're better served to flush and concentrate in this area more than in this area. This is the way the water flows, and you need to flush more in your older areas than in your fresher areas. And so we plan to take this and implement that with another flushing plan using this data that he has.
The last 10 years, I've noticed some of the fire hydrants that used to be flushed pretty frequently don't get flushed at all. So I don't know if that has changed in the last 8 to 10 years.
So
But,
I think over time, they have changed the flushing patterns based on, we get dirty water complaints or we get, this or that, but they're all on a monthly cycle. So even though it may be that one in the area is not the same one that's being flushed, we have started flushing, trying to move the water in one direction. It's called unidirectional flushing. Whereas before, we were kind of just going to a neighborhood and saying, flush this one, this one, this one. Now we're trying to make the water flow in one direction, so you're not creating turbulence and you're not creating more dirty water by flushing, so
maybe that's
that
it.
may be the difference that
Yeah,
you're seeing.
and that used to be also, you're notifying residents that when they made white washes to be careful, because you may have more sediment
Yes.
in that water. Now we don't, so that's probably
Well,
correct.
that's
probably,
why.
yeah,
Right.
okay, thank you.
So how's this gonna work with our well system?
With the well system?
Yeah, if we just have to go straight well system
It's, I mean,
without BWA.
without BWA, we've done that in the past, and we're still able to maintain those pressures. So we have 12 wells, and in the past, we run as many as 10 at one time, in lieu of BWA. And we can still do that. And the pressure is still, we can
So
still
we'll be
get
able to
over
monitor
50
the same
pounds.
pressure and,
We can still maintain over 50 pounds with
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Just up, Ron? Okay,
Do you have
anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Sunil.
All right, next item is declaration of conflict of interest. This is where council has opportunity to declare any conflict of interest on any item being on the consent agenda item or the regular agenda. So is any declaration to declare on conflict of interest? Not hearing any, we'll move on to consent agenda, and I'll try to read through these quickly here. We have item 1, approve minutes from September 19, 2022. Item 2, set board and commission minutes. We have KLJB, Parks Department, and LJDC. Item 3 is adopt ordinance number 2255 to rezone 3-acre portion out of Lot 2, Block 1, Section 13 of Plantation Village, currently addressed as 220 Lake Road, from B3 to B1, that's second reading. Item 4 is approve Festival Lights Parade Route and Median Closure. Item 5 is appoint Modesto Mundo as president and Megan Borth as vice president of Lake Jackson Development Corporation. Item 6, approve request to close the alley behind Lake Jackson Head Start located on 303 Garland Drive from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. for a private truck or treat event on Monday, October 31st, 2022. Item 7, authorize city manager to execute a contract with Sky Wonder Pyrotechnics LLC for the 4th of July fireworks in the amount not to exceed $30,000 as budgeted. Item 8, resolution number 905, amending the general contract project budget for the Ross Switch Ditch Outfall Pipe Repair in the amount not to exceed $60,000. Item 9, resolution number 906, amending the general fund for grant revenue of $12,000 and amending the grant fund training expenses for $12,000. Item 10, award bid number 2209012 for chlorine and sulfur dioxide to DXI Industries for $1 and we'll go this way, 1.0277 per pound.
Sorry, we couldn't make it.
All right. For 1 ton of liquid chlorine and $1.60 per pound for 150-pound liquid chlorine cylinders. And $0.1625 per pound for 1 ton sulfur dioxide as budgeted. Item 11, award contract extension to Hardy Care Lawns maintenance for utility contract mowing in the amount not to exceed $47,705 as budgeted. Authorize city manager to execute contract with Progressive Commercial Aquatics under the by board purchase co-op number 613-20 for Recreation Center Leisure Pool replastering not to exceed $63,050 as budgeted. Authorize the city manager to execute the contract with Progressive Commercial Aquatics under the by board purchase co-op number 613-20 for the Recreation Center natatorium pump room repiping not to exceed $62,425 as budget. Item 14, authorize city manager to execute contract with Game Time for a new playground at the Timber Creek Park under the by board purchase co-op number 592-12 not to exceed $304,852 as budgeted. Item 15, authorize increase in Kemper Sports Management not to exceed 8.3% as budgeted. Item 16, approve the purchase of 2 Dodge Durangos from Cameron Chrysler dealership in the amount not to exceed $88,940 as budgeted. Council, is there any item that you'd like to remove from the consent agenda?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to request that we move line item number 16 to regular agenda.
Okay. With that, I'll take a motion on the rest of the consent.
I also would like to remove item 15.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay. I'll take a motion on the consent agenda with item 15 and 16 moved to regular agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items 1 through 14 as presented.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilman Sinhania,
A second.
second by Councilman Baker. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we'll move to regular agenda item with item 15. Authorize increase in Kemper Sport Management not to exceed 8.3% as budgeted. Okay.
Good evening. I'm going to let Matt from the Wilderness Golf Course, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about this.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity to address it. I think the simplest answer probably in having, limited knowledge of the contract as written in 2009 is Section 4.2 in the original contract written in 2009 states that a fixed management fee may be adjusted upward or downward to reflect changes in the cost of operations as reflected by the U.S. Department of Labor. The 8.3% is directly reflective of the increase in operating costs, labor costs, and related directly to inflationary increases that we've seen kind of across the board. In our industry, actually, it's closer to about 11 or 12% for golf operations, as reported by the NGF, the National Golf Federation. So this is simply a cost adjustment based on cost of living index.
CPI. The
Yeah,
CPI.
and
Based on
CPI, Consumer Price Index, correct.
So is this at all tied to, I know over the last year or so, we've kind of exceeded, the golf course has kind of exceeded expected revenues. And that's been great. But is any of this ever tied to what our revenues are? Or is it strictly costs of doing business?
Strictly cost of doing business is my understanding. In previous years, there's actually been years where we have exceeded budget or improved upon the financial performance relative to the EBITDA and have not increased the fee. In fact, in 2016, the fee went down slightly based on, again, the cost of living index and the CPI. 2021, it stayed flat. Obviously, pretty good reason for that. In 2020, with COVID and everything that happened there was, no real increase. And in our operating costs, but it is, directly tied again to that the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, and
So-
not at all reflective of
So if we see
revenues.
a lag in revenue, then we're not gonna see a change. This number won't necessarily go down.
Well, we would, we hope that we won't see a lag in revenue,
Sure.
obviously, and certainly feel like we're positioned to continue to grow the revenue and the net profit for the facility in the city. But potentially, theoretically, there could be an increase or a decrease based, more on, what's going on in the larger economy, I think, is really what dictates more of the management fee structure.
That was really my question.
But I guess one of the things that, where I could see that it could go down or that we wouldn't approve a request would be is even though CPI goes up, they may have for some reason reduced level of service or something like that. And so then we could say, well, you're coming to us, which I don't think they would. But if they would come to us in a situation like that, well, then we could say, well, we don't agree with the cost increase because your services being offered have been reduced for some reason. And so that's why we might say, this is one time we wouldn't do it. But,
So it's not mandatory every year that even if there's a cost of doing business, that necessarily we approve an
no,
increase here?
no, we talked about it during
Okay.
budget
Yeah.
and stuff, so that's where it was proved at.
And the contract's written is that they, may, they can request it, council may, provide it.
And it has to be done before the budget time, so I believe.
Yeah, and they had told us during the budget
And I
process.
knew that was-
During the budget process, we budgeted, but again, we just now bringing it to council for
Right.
this fiscal year.
All right. Any other questions on this? If not, I'll take a motion on this. Item 15.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval of, I guess we'll call it regular agenda item. I'll just say, I'll move for approval to authorize the increase with Kemper Sports Management not to exceed 8.3% as budgeted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, we have 4-2, motion carries. Item 16 is approved purchase of 2 Dodge Durangos from Cameron Chrysler dealership in the amount not to exceed $88,940. Chief?
So just a quick question, are we going this with replacement of Fords or the Tahoes or both, or, because I know we were doing Tahoes, then we went to the Fords, so we are going.
This is me trying to be clever. In the years past, we went with either Tahoes, and we'd bring that at budget time, or Explorers like we did last year. Last 2 years, availability's been difficult, which it is again. And then this year, I brought forth Explorers and Tahoes, and both are very hard to find. We can't find them right now.
The Tahoes are very hard to.
Gay actually found
very
us.
hard to get.
It is.
They're all
And it's been for 2 years. We didn't get our cars, and we ran miles up on those old cars, and then they kept breaking down on us because it took us so long in the year to get them. Well, here we are again, prepared to either find Explorers or Tahoes, whichever one I could find quickest, and can't get them. Gay did get us one of the 3 we budgeted, a Tahoe, just by chance. But it looks like it could be this time next year before we could get an Explorer or Tahoe, or at least second quarter or past before we could even get it and start upfitting. So went out and found some Durango police purpose vehicles. Touched base with a few agencies just to see if they were reliable and such, and they could be just as reliable. I'm just not personally familiar with them. We haven't had Dodges in our fleet for 14 years or so, mostly. But this is a good chance and an alternative. I have no reason to think that they won't hold up just as well as the Explorer Tahoe. I just wanted to bring it to you because it's different than what we talked about.
So any service issues or service folks? will be able to
The
service them?
only thing that we've heard from one of the agencies that has it is that you may wear through the brakes a little quicker. I don't know if that's a brake pad issue or maybe the rotors aren't as sturdy or what, but most PPVs come with a beefier rotor just to handle the constant braking, what have you. So this is an alternative, and I think it'll allow us, because they are available now.
Okay.
They're dwindling fast in number. That's why we wanted to get our foot in the door here for these
Oh,
two.
that's good. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all I have.
Any other questions?
Quick question, Chief.
So-
Who outfits y'all units?
Currently, we use, you had to ask me, his name is Keith. He did a great job for us last year. Blue Line Upfitters, he was, Thin Line Upfitters, I think is what it's called. He did a fantastic job, both with work quality and getting our product here on time. In the past, we've had some decent upfitters, but by the time you get in the car, and you're an agency that buys 3 or 4, you sit in line behind
Yeah,
someone
you-
that's got
those-
200.
So
And,
the big departments. they
and
put
Keith
them-
did us really well last year and did a fabulous job, too.
Okay. Justin, you have a question?
I'd like to do comments.
Sure.
Justin Pulliam, Mayor, Council, I believe this is a serious issue facing the public safety of this city. Numerous times, the police patrol do not have enough vehicles ready to go. And this is numerous occasions, like they're struggling with having the vehicles needing to patrol the city. It is a little unfortunate that these are just going to be, not under a pre-existing agreement or bid out. But if there's availability issue, I think compared to other departments around our general region, this city stretches out its fleet overall. And I hope that y'all can get these vehicles on so the police patrol staff that we pay for can hit the streets right at 6 and get going. And so I think that this is a great job with the police administration solving this problem. And then maybe also look going forward, make sure that as far as maintaining the existing vehicles, that the city's doing that in the most efficient method as well. Thank you, Mayor and
All
Council.
right, thank you. Thank you. All right, any other comment? All right, I'll take a motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the purchase of 2 Dodge Durangos from Cameron Chrysler dealership in an amount not to exceed $88,940 as budgeted.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment from council? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right,
Thank you, sir.
thank you. All right, move on to regular agenda. Item 1 is consider request to close portion of Circle Way in front of Bodega for a car show on Saturday, September 5th, 2022, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. Hey, Reeves.
You said September, but it's
Oh, sorry.
November.
November 5th. Hello,
Yeah.
Council. I'm Kent Devine, one of the partners of Bodega. Yeah, I've had car shows in the past. Looking at how everything's been going in downtown right now, and the monetary value of the cars that the car show organizer, Hector, brings in, I just am trying to protect the cars so the drivers feel comfortable bringing the cars into downtown. And generally, when we do this, it does bring a large crowd of people to downtown. So I'm hoping that we can close that road section. I have contacts with BCSS and planning on bringing in porta potties for the event to add to the increase of people that are temporarily there. And I know I requested it for 4 to 10. The car show would be 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. We would just like a couple-hour buffer to make sure cars get out, and then we have time to set everything up.
Is you gonna need part of parking way too, or is that?
I would just use on parking way, I would just be using my side parking lot that's already my concrete of the actual business. Because my concrete on that side extends about 20 feet beyond my railroad ties.
So they're doing a lot of construction there, so that's
Yeah.
that's not gonna affect you any?
So I can actually talk about that if you'd
Okay.
like. So we are going to be completed with the portion that they're currently working on, which is on the opposite side of Bodega, like on the All-Star Habitat side. So they're going to be done with that portion that is currently under construction by the beginning of November. We have the Monday following his event.
Can you
is-
show me with the pointer there?
Yeah, here. Where's the pointer? I got one. So right now.
There.
Yeah. Right now, they're currently working right here. As you're aware, this is all done. They also have right here torn up. This will be done by that event. They may be finishing up pavers or sidewalk. I can't guarantee that, but the concrete work will be done. It'll be open to through traffic. This portion is going to be your question mark because he would close right here on this side. So essentially you would have no, if this was still being worked on, you would have no through traffic on that portion of Circleway. However,
I can't see the point out.
On this side, she's concerned.
yeah,
There's a chance it could not be open in time, but with
But it
Divas
will
at
be.
Dusk happening on Monday.
yeah. So the Divas at Dusk event happens on Monday, the 5th or 7th, whatever that is.
7th.
7th. We also have the Festival of Lights 2 weeks later. The parade comes through there. So the contractor has already guaranteed me that they will be cleaned up the weekend come November 1st. That whole area will be cleaned for the Divas event, which was something I had promised to the downtown businesses already. So not that I had promised it for this event, but it does kind of coincide with that since this would be the weekend that it should already be open at that point. So it may not be, like I said, the sidewalk and the pavers may not be completely done, but it will be open to through traffic. So if you do choose to allow him to close that side of Circleway, his side, the opposite side should be open to through traffic. There may just not be all the parking open there. So that's one thing for you to consider.
So how many vehicles are you looking at? Are you estimating?
The last event we hosted, we just, parked some on our property, and then altogether, Hector said he had RSVP'd 154 vehicles.
You gonna be able to fit all of those there?
Will I be able to fit all of them? Not specifically, but he handpicks. If he gets
gotcha.
150 requests to be a part of the event, he'll handpick once we know the amount of spots that we have. If he has 60 spots available, then he'll handpick the 60 cars that he wants to display for his car show.
You gonna need some law enforcement?
I don't believe so. I'm not
traffic
planning on
control.
extended traffic control. As long as the road's closed, traffic control shouldn't be an issue. The Infinite Racing Group that puts on these events, they are a very big part of this community. They have, I haven't hosted or sponsored one of them, but altogether they've hosted like 3 fundraiser events for BISD over in Brazosport a few times, and we generally sponsor those events. They are known for carrying and taking care of anything that needs to be done.
So they
they're
will
used
be
to
setting
having
up
these
their own
events.
traffic control there.
Yes, Hector's very good at telling the cars what to do on that side of things, and then he has about 20 people that are generally helping him, making sure to keep the peace of everything.
Okay, thank you.
And you want like a block off the street? You want,
Yes, I want to
Where
close
at
off the
exactly?
street
Here?
from block to block. Yes, sir.
but just on your side?
Yes,
And then where on then here?
and then there.
Okay, so
So
just,
the intersection would still be accessible.
right,
The
so you
intersection
can get
would
all
be
through
accessible.
here
We're just
and
closing
they-
down the road, like the fill station used to do, just directly in front of them.
Yeah. So this will be open, all up here, open, all this
Yes.
open, just one
It's
little
just
bit
the
right here.
one block.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm just making you all aware that there may not be parking completely open on the opposite side of Circleway, the one that we would leave open for this. So
Right.
just so you are, I'm being transparent with
Yeah,
that.
but
As
the
long as
through
they-
piece of it,
It will be open for them.
because it'll be set up where you can only park on that side if you're coming westbound, right?
Yes, sir.
And so you're saying the
may
street
not
will
be
be good,
open
but
yet.
parking might.
Yes.
Okay, I'm with you. Thank you.
Yeah, they poured the parking next to the buildings, and then the next one is they feed off. So this stretch here has now been poured, and then they pour the next phase, which is the travel lanes on that. And so they build towards the median or towards Bodega. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Any other questions on this?
If we do, can I ask just one thing, just in case the other side isn't ready, something happens? Before we do it, will staff have a conversation with the fire chief and the EMS chief just to have a contingency plan? In case something
Okay.
happens in your blocked off section, so your ambulance can come up from Center Way, or just so they know where it's not. Right.
Okay.
Let's just at least have a conversation.
Oh, well, that's what, there will always be space to run cars through. In the same sense, it's not an ambulance, but when they're moving in cars, Hector generally keeps a lane of traffic open for that. So they'll just be pulling through and backing up, but,
We just want to make sure that any first responders have the knowledge of what routes.
We
that
can,
they're
at least, we can at least meet with fire and EMS.
Yeah, if
so
y'all
they
don't mind,
know
just
how to
meet.
get to the event.
Yeah, please.
Plus, make sure, if any parking or pedestrian areas are not complete, that we properly tag them so nobody gets hurt walking through them. So make sure they're tagged, barricaded properly.
It's a cool thing. Thank y'all for doing that. I think that's neat to bring to downtown.
it's an interesting environment. That's what the first one, I was definitely a lot more nervous working with Hector. He had only done one event at the fill station, but me and Hector have had, he does social nights regularly, and then these are more bodega nights, is what he has called them. But we've had probably a dozen to 24 events together, so
How are y'all advertising this? Just out of curiosity.
he just promoted it on Facebook. This past week, he started the event, and then depending on how this meeting goes, we'll look at that. I'm considering getting a banner at this time with the construction going on, just having a banner up there to show, just to have a good time.
All right. If there's any other questions, I'll take a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make the motion to close part of Circle Way in front of Bodega for a car show on Saturday, November the 5th, 2020, from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m.
I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kent.
Good luck.
All right, we have item 2, discuss and consider whether rabbits should be allowed in city limits or for K through 12 projects such as Future Farmers of America. Casey.
Welcome back. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. Thanks for having us back and giving us a chance to rehash this. So, as most of you probably know, our situation's changed a little bit. So, we appreciate you guys looking into that for us and, figuring out what, the proper zoning was so that we could have what we have. That being said, it's important that we continue this fight for other kids that this does affect. One of the areas that I feel like we got off topic a little bit last time was that we broadened the discussion to include animals other than chickens. I'm sorry, other than rabbits. Everything else was thrown in as an example as to why not to allow rabbits. And so today we come, one, asking that we keep the discussion in the comments to rabbits as opposed to other livestock, because that's what we're here for. And secondly, the first time we showed up, I was a little surprised, honestly, that not more people showed up to kind of support the cause, considering the amount of, support we saw online, a lot of hype about it, right? Then the more I thought about it, I'm like, why would somebody come up here willingly and give their address and basically say, hi, I have a bunny, come get it? So we feel like we're here to be that voice. They need a voice. I, have done some research and I've sent Councilmember Blanchard and some ordinances of surrounding cities. And Lake Jackson's the only one that does not offer some sort of relief for kiddos that choose to be in some sort of agriculture program. So I've sent those with hopes that council can look at it and adopt some sort of ordinance or some kind of exception to the ordinance that would allow these kids to participate, specifically in rabbits. I think, there's merit in all other animals, but let's save that fight for another day, because right now here we're discussing the rabbits. I also want to point out that if you were to look at the Lake Jackson, Richwood, Freeport, the complaints, how many rabbit complaints do we have compared to dog complaints, cat complaints? And so I'd really like council to consider that, and, neighbors as well, to consider that when it really comes down to it, what's the nuisance created here? If the animals are taken care of, which would be assured by these programs, we don't really see, a way that we cannot exist together, whether it be neighbors sign off on it or, there's some stipulations where the city comes in and checks the area. But again, that's what we're here. We're here to just continue the fight and answer any questions, here for the comments. We'd really like the chance to address, some of the comments and concerns and hope that we can come to some sort of middle ground. So, Billy, if you want to say anything. Okay. So we're here if you guys have questions, concerns, anybody else wants to.
I had one question from last time. We had kind of discussed about numbers and stuff, and we had talked about breeding, and you explained to us a little bit more about that. So if we had to put a number on it, what would be reasonable as somebody who actually raises and breeds rabbits?
That really depends on like what type of rabbit you do. You can do breeding, which that is really up to you. You don't have to have multiple, but if you do market, you have to have a pen, and you pick the identical ones out of that pen. You do your 3, or you can do an individual, but a lot of markets have like, 5 or 10 pens, and you pick the 3 that you think are perfect to go and to shows, and that's how they would decide that. So it really just depends on what type of rabbits they're raising.
Marketing or breeding, market or breeding, like she mentioned, you could have a market pen that's anywhere from 15 to 20 rabbits large, or 5 to 10. But again, you pick the best 3, the most identical. Bigger your pen, the more chances you have to make an identical rabbit. The rest for market rabbits, it's history. They get shoved off, processed, and they get, to fill our tummies later. And then breeding rabbits, that's a different case altogether. Like she said, you could have one, or each kid could try their hand on different breeds, which is what my kiddos did. They each picked their favorite breeds, and they decided their trios. I think each of them have, one has 4 and one has 5, I think, of the kinds of rabbits that they have. But again, that's up to the discretion of the kiddo, and that's obviously something that could be up to the discretion of the city as well, to put a limit on saying, these are the stipulations, and if you're gonna do pen, this is the stipulations. But again, we don't feel like it's an area that's too hard to come to a compromise on.
Roughly how many do you think you'll have? Like, what's a ballpark?
So we each have around 4 or 5 breeds, and you usually either have a pair or a trio of those.
Okay.
So I'd say around 24.
20 or 24?
23, 24. Yeah.
But roughly, y'all talking about breeding, but I thought we was talking about a future form of America.
Well, so whenever you go to rabbit shows, there's 2 different categories you can show in. So you can either do market, which is where they go and they get processed and you ship them off, or breeding.
That's where the money is.
Yeah, that's where the money. And then the breeding, you don't have to breed rabbits to be in that. That just means you get to take it home with you. You don't have to kill it. It's just like how they call the categories. It's not necessarily that you have to breed.
And these are the projects that they do in 4-H or FFA for rabbits specifically. Those are the 2 projects offered for those types of agricultural groups.
Yeah, but once again, I thought we was not talking about for breeding.
Right, we're not
talking
breeding.
about for the FHA.
Sure. We say, sorry, that's a good point. To clarify, they're called breeding rabbits. That's just the category that they're in. We say breeding rabbits not because every single one of them is going to be a breeding rabbit for us. It's just the type that they are. There's meat pen and there's breeding. We specifically show breeding type rabbits. Not every rabbit we have will be bred.
And just because they're called breeding does not mean that every kid's going to do it. There's plenty of people that have one, but because they don't want to send it off to a meat pen, they put it in breeding and they can take it home with them and continue to show it.
We just were lucky enough to have the space and the capacity to do it. And then, in between we kind of got confused as to what we had. But that's not, our situation's not going to be fitting for every single community member. That's why I said there's value to be placed on the ordinances, and that you guys come together and put some sort of stipulations on them, so that it's not just run amok with the breeding or the meat pens and whatnot. Because like she said, breeding can be a whole bunch, or it can just be one solitary rabbit. We're just calling it breeding because it's not going to get processed after the show.
Yeah, for an example, is the information I got from the FFA at Beewood is that there's a wide variety of number of animals that people are showing. There's a lot of students that are, like 13 students are only showing like 1 animal.
Yep.
And then y'all are showing 5 or 7 a piece or something like that. And so that's where you get into, breeders or meat and stuff like that. And also, the county fair, I think it was last year, they started the, what they call the freezer auction. And so that's for the meat ones and stuff. So you can option in if you want to have your animal go into that or not to raise funds.
Right, and that's a great point to point out. I mean, at the end of the day, all of the rabbits have a purpose, whether it be for the freezer or whether they go on to help show and other purposes. That's not, we are not breeders of rabbits. We show breeding rabbits, if that makes sense.
So for the students that are just doing 1 animal, what do they just go buy a bunny from somebody and?
So you find somebody that you would like to buy a rabbit for, and there is certain parameters that a rabbit should meet that will make it a showable rabbit and one that would win. There are certain disqualifications, so you would find a breeder or a person that has a show rabbit, and you just take it to a show, and they'd get judged. If it's not a good one, you could sell it or you could keep it. It's really up to the exhibitor.
So if you wanted to go over there, if you're a student and you want to get an FFA and you wanted to show rabbits, you wanted to go into the breeder because you didn't want to offer it up for somebody's freezer, but you only want to do one rabbit. How would that, walk me through that, from purchasing the rabbit to taking care of it to show, and what time period is that?
So to buy the rabbit, it really just depends on where you go. So we use Bowling Bunny Farm, which is out in Needville, and they have a whole barn specifically for ag kids to go, and they will walk you through the whole process. And if you don't have that, there is a book you can get, and it shows you everything that you need to know on like how to do this, and then you just enter through shows. A lot of major shows like Brazoria County, Houston, or Fort Worth, you have to have a sponsor, which is like which is the reason that a lot of kids are in FFA, because they have to have a sponsor. Right. So to get into those major shows. So you would go and become a member of this organization, and they most likely would have an entry night, and if not, you can reach out to your ag teacher, and they will give you a way to enter for these shows. And the care, it's not a lot to do. When you have a large quantity, I mean, it can become a lot, but I mean, it's really up to how much work you want to put in. Keeping the cage clean is just a humane thing to do.
Right.
I would say, we could go, our first one, we started out with just one. We went to Bowling Bunny Farm, we picked one out based on her research, she found one she liked. We read all about it, we got the cage, we got the food, we brought it home, we set it up. 3 months later, she decided she really, really liked it, we got 2 more. And we got the set up, we set them up at home, and the good thing about showing rabbits is that it's not a one and done, especially with breeding rabbits. That's why we're doing breeding rabbits, is you can show them for years and years and years. As long as they're healthy and as long as they still meet these breeding standards, there's no reason she can't show these until she's a senior. She's in 8th grade. There's no reason she can't continue this for the next 4 or 5 years. He's in 5th, he's in 4th grade going into 5th. He can continue this for as long as those rabbits are available. So, that's the great thing about the rabbits. You ask kind of a timeline, is it's really indefinite. It's how long the kids want to be involved, how long the rabbits, still are showable, right? And then, I think I mentioned last time, there are outlets that when you're done with your breeding rabbits, other kids may want them, or the place that you get the bunnies usually are very receptive, saying, yeah, give it back to us because we can use it in a breeding program, or we can use it. So there are outlets. It's not, none of these never have crossed our mind going to some place like the SPCA or Humane Society. There's no surrendering needed, and the majority of kids that are going to be in your ag programs and your 4-H, they spend so much time and money on these animals, they're not going to just be like, yeah, here you go, let's just let them free. So again, we just think there's going to be there's got to be a good compromise for these kiddos, specifically for rabbits. I think we can. There's other merits or other things to talk about in different animals, different merits, but maybe that's for another day.
Well, the other reason why I was asking about timelines and stuff is because some of these ordinances, they have it set up to where it's a 1-year permit.
Right, sure. Mm-hmm.
And so, in some of those ordinances, I believe, said that after 1 year, the animal has to leave. So you're talking about that you wouldn't be interested in something like that because, again, somebody could keep the same animal and show it all the way, like your daughter, all the way through high school.
I think more a renewal is more realistic as opposed to just a complete disposition of the project.
And that's how Angleton's is set up.
Because if you've got a meat rabbit, then absolutely the disposition is inevitable. But if you've got a breeding rabbit, a renewal is more of what what a kid would be wanting.
I have a question. If we're talking about, a program specific to FFA or 4-H, can you explain to me a little bit about the type and amount of oversight those programs have on individual rabbits, I guess, or
Sure. Honestly, we have to be in 4-H or FFA to be able to enter a lot of those shows. They hold some nights for us that are registration nights for, like she said, Houston, Fort Worth. Some of the bigger shows you have to be registered through these type of organizations. But as far as the day-to-day care, there's no involvement. You know, we can ask for advice or, you know, do you have a specific breeder in mind that would give this? But, you know, like I said, there's no ag, I take that back. There are in the new CTE buildings, there's some rooms back there that you can bring in your animals, but there's no specific place to house any type of these animals. When I was in Beewood, back in, you know, way back when, 2000, 2001, I do remember them having some sort of building where they kept the rabbits and kept the chickens for these ag kids. So I know there's been an outlet in the past. I'm not sure why that outlet is no more. But again, it's detrimental to these kids, and I don't think that you get an accurate representation of who really would participate if they had the means to participate. Yes, there's a good turnout, but again, compare it to anything else we do, like sports or football or volleyball or baseball. Compare that to the kids that do FFA, and there's no comparison.
So they don't like come to your house and
Absolutely not.
investigate the cages?
No,
There's
they
no
don't.
like routine reports that y'all give to them or?
We bring them up because there are like, we
Good.
bring them up because like they have a rabbit grooming evening or whatever, and so they'll come and then they'll like check them out, make sure, you know, their nails look good, but no, they don't check the maintenance and the nutrition and the cage, etc. for the rabbits, because at the end of the day the show is the final exam, right? I mean, they don't need to follow up on the homework if the kid is going to show the thing at the end of the day. So her work's going to show for itself. I don't think they have the capacity to reach out honestly to every kid, and especially how are they going to do that when they don't house anything on campus?
So I'm just gonna say, again, I think we talked about this last time. I live in 0 lot line properties. My neighbor, I think, had rabbits for 2 years. I would have never known there were rabbits next door. I never smelled anything, never heard anything. And the bottom line is that there's not any reason why people can't have rabbits, particularly when they're trying to, I still have not heard from anybody why somebody couldn't have rabbits on private property.
We've heard
Other than-
analogies about
other
dogs
than
and cats and cows and chickens.
master plan community, but there's got to be a balance and common sense with private property rights. I mean, it's not like we're talking about housing a herd full of cows, you know, that
Or
is
even
gonna
a breeding
affect everybody.
operation, which, you know, I know is a big concern of a city, you know, manager and animal control and whatnot. We're not talking about free-range breeding or irresponsible kids just.
Yeah, and I mean, this is very educational. I mean, I don't know anything about rabbits other than neighbors have had them and I don't smell it. And regardless of what happens tonight, you two, and I told your mom this last time, very impressed. You guys have been very well spoken and done an excellent job lobbying for your cause. I just think we should be able to come up with something that is some common sense here and allows people, again, private property rights.
Do we have the draft of the new ordinance so we can start looking at it and working through it?
No, I need input from city council on what measures that you want in the ordinance first.
Because I had made the motion that we start a new ordinance so that we can start talking about it, but that's no good to us now if we're just sitting here talking in circles.
Well, and I'm just gonna say also, I read some of this, like, having to get your neighbor's permission. I'm not gonna agree to that. Having these, you know, we know a lot of the lots in Lake Jackson are small. These guys are lucky, they've got a nice big area. I think we need to also be very careful not to push people out by putting ridiculous, you know, oh, it has to be 1,000 feet from their neighbors. You know, we know the lots aren't that big
So if we have if we had a draft
to work off of.
we could all sit here and start saying, I like this, I don't like this, I like this, let's do this.
I think there was some information in your packet, and I know the chief has more information, but what I want to say is what's on the agenda is this is discussing and considering whether they should be allowed. It's not the ordinance itself. The vote would be on
Moving
whether
forward.
council wants to actually formally move forward with it.
So my motion said, I motion to continue discussion and create a new ordinance to allow for rabbits with council stipulations.
Right. So
I thought that was pretty clear.
This is what's on the agenda, and I need those stipulations.
Yes, sir.
If I may add a little bit, that's exactly what I heard last time as well. And
I
so
thought
what
that's what we
we've
were
been
gonna do.
doing in that process, we have moved forward. We've reached out to numerous cities for their ordinance as example, not to reinvent the wheel. It also helps to have conversations with those that like rabbits and those that don't, so we can come up with the best plan, and we're in the process of doing that. So hopefully between now and the next time we come, staff will provide maybe some information on to help Sherry out with that. But we are in the process of it.
Okay, I'm sorry. And going back to the agenda, it's, do you want rabbits all the time, or you just want them for education?
Right.
I have to read the whole sentence sometime, and I didn't do that. I apologize. So that's the decision. Do you just want rabbits, or do you want rabbits for educational purposes? And right, and I guess
That was a little question mark we had too after the discussion was, is this something we're going to facilitate this type of need here alone, and that's it for rabbits? Or are we just going to broadly allow rabbits as well? So we had that question on what you voted on last time. But either way, we're looking towards gathering whatever information you may need so that you can get a framework for that ordinance and move forward.
Okay, we got, Justin, you're up for, you had comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Justin Pulliam. I was fortunate enough to grow up without a municipal nanny, and so I participated in FFA projects, and it was a big part of I'd really say my identity growing up in school, and it taught me things like personal responsibility for others, hard work, instead of doing whatever other activities youth were doing back then. I don't even want to know what youth do on the streets today. I would think taking care of their bunny rabbit would be a lot better, you know, maybe get a junior FFA, then FFA, do rabbits, goats, maybe even cows. We won't talk about cows in backyards right now. I want to give anyone a stroke, but for me, it was I wouldn't be right here today. I wouldn't be who I am today if it wasn't for this experience growing up, that it's not just you, Justin, there's, hard work, and there's animals, and you have to take care of this animal every day, or it's not going to make it, and it's your responsibility. And I think it's self-evident today. You can see that there's young people already confronting their government over what they think is an unjust regulation. And again, not just for themselves, because it seems that's already been resolved, but for everyone, because they understand that this is a good activity that council should, and this should be like a no-brainer. Like as a government and as police officials or as city officials, people should be able to engage in activities that develop the youth. Instead, we're going to worry about what if it's a year and permits, like no permits, no regulations, you can have your bunnies. As far as educational or not, I was discussing on the way down here, like government regulations have to be content neutral. I think you might have a hard time making a content neutral ordinance that says you can only do it for FFA, but maybe sometime later someone else who likes to have rabbits at their home, I don't think you'll find any complaints. And I think I really agree with Councilwoman Setz's posture on this as well, and I appreciate you advocating for this. But like no regulations, no permits, youth should be able to engage and good activities, and if we can't get this basic ability to do good things on your own private property, why live in Lake Jackson? And maybe that's why some people don't. So thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, John?
Just a few words. Did you ever, I don't think our founding fathers ever thought there would be a time where citizens would be begging their government if they could have a rabbit. The other thing that I would like to say, if the police want to do like a bunny raid or something, I'll make sure I'll be there to record it. Also, I would ask that please don't bulldoze the bunny homes. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I still have some maybe clarifying questions. It says here on the agenda item, it says K through 12 projects, and maybe that word projects is throwing me off. It was my understanding that this was, again, K through 12 suggests to me school, that this was somehow tied to a school, that there was some level of teacher or administration oversight or something, but I'm learning through this conversation that might not be true.
Sure.
It's actually a two-question agenda. Is asking, do we want to allow rabbits in the city? And then, or do we want a K-12
Or for K through
Sure.
12
Yeah.
projects.
So I
Project.
can actually
So,
speak
I
to
mean,
both
it's-
of those questions. So
Thank
the answer is both. FFA is through the high school. 4-H is not. 4-H is a group that anybody can join, and I think it's important to mention that because someone actually reached out to me and said, hey, it's great that you're fighting for kids at Beewood, but what about the kids that are homeschooled that live in Lake Jackson that can't have anything? So it's not directly related to 4-H is not directly related to Brazos Wood. It's still an educational type program because obviously what they're doing is education. But is it always specifically tied to a specific school, a specific teacher? No. The projects are all done within 4-H or FFA. They're called projects because that's part of the program requirements is, I say requirements. Again, Mayor pointed out last time, there's some sort of social aspect to it, but at the end of the day, you don't help each other with your animals. You all have your own animals, and then there's a sense of community when you do get together and kind of discuss during fair time or whatnot. So it really is twofold. The groups exist so that like-minded kids can get together, and people pointed out, stay out of trouble. I'd much rather than be outside taking care of animals than on TikTok scrolling through and doing whatnot. So I think to the point of should there be rabbits or should it just be for K through 12 FFA or 4-H projects. Obviously, we're here to fight for those 4-H kids and the FFA kids, but I don't see why there's plenty of people that I know that have rabbits as a bunny that nobody here knows about, so I don't see why they cause a nuisance to the community. Rabbits
And that's kind
specifically.
of where I pick it up there, and why, to me, the question should be yes or no, and it should not be tied to a school project or whatever, because still nobody has been able to demonstrate what nuisance or what problem this is going to cause in the community. If I, who am way beyond FFA age, decide, hey, I want 3 rabbits in my backyard, what difference does it make to my neighbors?
You say that because
You know?
there is no really a limit on the educational process. You can show rabbits.
I might
up
just
until-
want to have a rabbit's pet when I come
Right,
home.
or you
know?
you could take that rabbit and you
You know?
could show it as well at the show. I mean, I just don't see that there's any reason or argument that says it's gonna stamp on anybody's freedoms in their own yard if somebody has a rabbit within
So
theirs.
I don't know about y'all, but
But I've got another person that wants to
Yep.
talk. Gary, you want to speak? You're on the list.
Listen, I don't want to, my name is Gary Hunter, 117 Mesquite Street. I don't want to come out of this as the bad guy, okay? I really am impressed with your knowledge of what you're doing and your hard work, dedication, and everything. It's really good. FFA is a good program as well. I want to play devil's advocate, okay? I want to point out some things to City Council before you make a decision on this. And it wasn't only a few months ago that we went through stuff about chickens, okay? Now, if you go to the FFA website and you look at what they recommend, children to start off with, it's broilers or rabbits. Broilers or chickens, okay? They do lay eggs, okay? Somewhere down the road, after you get past your decision, I promise you, you will have the chicken people back in here.
oh, for sure.
They'll be back in here, okay? And next will be somebody, next down the line, as far as animals is concerned with FFA, is pigs, goats, and lamb. Now, that's all barn animals, okay? Obviously, you need a lot more property to do something with that. Bunnies are nice. They're cute, huggable, furry. Believe me, I'd love to have a rabbit too. I've got dogs instead. But you are going to be confronted with relentlessly, just on and on, people wanting to come in here to have, next it'll be FFA with chickens, okay? That'll be the next. And then it'll be the people who want to raise chickens to have their eggs and stuff like that. They're going to be back. So whatever you come up with, it's going to have to be carefully worded, okay? To make sure that we don't have this continuous onslaught of people wanting their favorite animal in their backyards. So with that, that's all I've really got to say. I don't want to be the bad guy here. I'm just trying to point out that we need to do this very carefully. And, yeah, Seth, they don't make any, they don't smell. Even some chickens can be done. It's been done, okay? The fact of the matter is we have laws, and we can't always bend depending on the direction of the wind, okay? I mean, we rule by majority and not by minority. And when you have a bunch of specialists, special interest groups, constantly coming in here begging to do stuff. And he's like, oh, I want to. And it's a tough job, believe me, I know. So,
So,
please.
Mr. Hunter, I appreciate the fact that both you and Ms. Hunter are always engaged with our community. So I always appreciate that, because I think that we do always have to look at both sides and ask the questions. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
The great thing about taking this case by case is the people who come and want llamas and, you know, cows and buffaloes and stuff, we can take this on a case by case basis and use some common sense and say, no, we don't want that, you know? So you're right, when you open the door, it is open, but luckily we have the ability to discuss it as a community and say yes or no. We don't have to say, because we said yes to this, we have to now say yes to every single thing. And as Ms. Kilsby had said, their particular question and the question that's on the agenda is related directly to rabbits. And, you know.
Saying is one thing, doing is another.
Yeah.
Okay? So I'll hold you to that.
I'm okay with that.
Thank you, sir. Again, I'm with you, Ms. Seth. I appreciate hearing the arguments on the other
Sure.
side, so I can kind of see where other people are coming from. And like I mentioned at the beginning, I was hoping we could stick to rabbits here. But I'd like to say, I guess, I don't see a problem with us bringing this to the council anytime we want a change of law. I think that's what you guys are here for.
Correct.
I don't see that there's a problem if somebody wants something to change, that they come up to their local government and bring it before people. I don't think that opens any bad doors. I think that is exactly what our government's set up to do. And for us to say because it's always done that way or because laws are laws, that's not what we're set up to do. That's not what you guys are elected to do. You guys are elected to say what the people want and to bring what the people want. And he's exactly right, majority rules. And so let's see where we are on, can we find a common sense majority rule, or are we gonna go back to the minority here, which seems to be that nobody, I mean, to me, it seems the majority here is unable to provide a reason specifically for rabbits. And that's again why we're here, specifically for rabbits. And so I would ask, you know, where are we in majority minority here? Because rabbits are where we're at. And again, I don't necessarily think, and I appreciate your comment for sure, but I don't think that it's a bad thing ever to bring anything to a city council and ask for a change if you truly believe that it's worth it.
But if
Sorry.
we was going towards the majority, we would have to put it towards on the voting poll and let the people
Sure,
vote for it.
absolutely. And I don't think we, I mean, hopefully that's why
And
we're
then the
here,
people
so we
would have
don't
to
go
vote
that
for it,
route.
and then they would make, then you would have the majority.
Right, but we as people elect you guys.
Yeah,
to
we're a
speak for us.
representative
Yes,
government. That's why we
You guys
sit
are
here.
here because the majority voted for
Right.
you guys. And so that's what I'm
To make the
asking here.
decision.
You
To make
guys are
that
voted
decision.
for the majority
No,
here.
she was asking about the majority. She said the majority.
The majority
So I was just
voted-
saying-
Majority of
So I was
us.
just saying.
Right, the majority of
She
us.
didn't say the majority of us. She said the majority of
Well,
the
even,
voters.
I'm sorry, even the majority of people put you there. So the majority of people think that, you know, you guys have similar alignments to what they believe and what they want. So yes, the majority has put you here. So now I'm asking, what does that majority want to do with this rabbit situation? Because again, no one has presented an argument specifically for rabbits that says any reason why we're not to. I understand citizens' points about, you know, opening the doors, but again, case by case, that's what you guys are here for. That's what we're here for. If you're not gonna get up and speak, then what's the point of having a city council? Then you guys make all the decisions. That's not why we're here. That's not why anybody is here.
Okay.
Well, there's a way to go to the voters on this, though, right?
It's a
And
referendum.
and bypass the council
If
altogether.
we cannot find a resolution here, from what I understand, if city council's not willing to come to a resolution, I believe we can take it to the voters if need be.
So have you, or anybody, I guess, really found an ordinance that they like? Because
Yeah, I've sent
is
several.
really well written.
I don't think we got that far. We haven't
Wait,
even
we're
got.
actually
Well, that's part of my,
backtracking.
that's part
Yeah,
of my
that's
issue,
where I'm
though.
so lost. We're
We haven't even got
backtracking.
there yet.
My issue, though, is that the devil is in the details, and the Angleton ordinance would limit to 6 rabbits, right?
Correct.
And we did ask her about if we had
That's
to put a
what-
limit, which we would.
And don't they have a physical 150 or 100 foot or something away? Are
Not
we
that
gonna-
big. And
Because-
that's what I'm saying,
Well,
150
But the problem, we
foot.
haven't even voted to see if we want it or not, if we don't want it to come up with an ordinance.
Well, I would like this
It
question.
depends upon the ordinance, I think, in my mind. It's hard for me to vote generally and to be in favor of some obtuse,
Well, I think that
concept.
The question and what Chase had motioned last time was let's get let's create those details and what works for the city of Lake Jackson, because Angleton's a great model, but Angleton's not Lake Jackson. And we would need to, I mean, that's what he's saying. It's just like we've spent, you know, almost a year working on the food truck ordinance. You know, maybe it takes some time and we create the ordinance that suits Lake Jackson, because what happens in a referendum, and I researched this for the chicken people, so you have to have either 400 signatures from Lake Jackson, or you have to have 20% of the last municipal election. So in this case, because voter turnout was so poor, you would have to have 400 signatures. And it would have to go through the city secretary, and they would have to, they would have to verify the signatures that they were from Lake Jackson. So yes, there's a way to do that, but yes, it blows my mind that we're not able to come up with common sense for rabbits. I mean, can we?
Well, what is that?
Well, that's our
Is
job.
it 150 feet? Is it 100 feet? Or 6 animals or 10 animals?
That's our job, but we have to decide if we want to move forward on answering those questions.
So my thing is, you know, if you want to have a rabbit in Lake Jackson, and, you know, a lot of people currently do have a rabbit in Lake Jackson, we just don't know about it. And if it doesn't bother their neighbor, then what's the problem? I mean, just a question, you know, I mean.
Well, that's the question we've been asking.
And that's the question that we've come
Because, you know, chickens is different, you know, goats are different, and.
If
you
it
know, all
doesn't
other
bother
things.
their neighbor, I
Right.
tend to agree that there's not a problem. But when it does bother the neighbor,
And that's something that
then
has
it
to be
becomes a
addressed.
problem.
In that ordinance.
I don't disagree with that either.
So we voted, and it passed, to create a new ordinance the last meeting. I don't understand why we even have this on this agenda. Can we just move forward with what we voted on and passed, create the ordinance, then we can discuss what, and then we all get to vote on it or not vote on it? I feel like it's very simple.
And just like we have the massage parlor stuff, the food truck ordinance stuff, we've tweaked
How,
that.
okay, can you explain to me how?
That wasn't the wording that you had.
I'm reading it specifically from the minutes, yes, sir.
Well, it doesn't seem like it got put down correctly. What I heard was that you were going to discuss it for 2 weeks and bring it back to this month's, this meeting here.
And
That's
create
what
a
the
new
motion was.
ordinance to allow for
I didn't
rabbits.
hear the part about creating a new ordinance.
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay.
That's why I made that specifically. And which we can all sit here and pick and choose what goes into that ordinance, and it may not pass at all. But we're not even getting to that step. We've got to get to that step. I thought that's where we were today. So
Can we call the question?
Sorry,
Yes, sir.
I'm with Councilmember Seth here. I sent several examples of wording, thinking that we were worded to the ordinance point, so that when we got it here, we could discuss and kind of pick apart things we liked and things we didn't like, such as, you know, the yardage, the square footage, things like that. I agree there's two different issues here, whether it's FFA 4-H or whether they can just have bunnies, and I'm almost to the point where let's just say, can they have bunnies in Lake Jackson, and cut that argument out, because I think we're still to the same point of, still, it's not causing anybody any nuisance, any pain to have a bunny versus have a pet bunny versus have a 4-H bunny. Those bunnies, it doesn't matter. I mean, they're still just as quiet and just as clean. So, I mean, if that helps council move on this, I just assume, say, all bunnies in Lake Jackson.
Well, and again, if you,
Okay, JB asked to call the question.
Yes.
So that's
We
on
have call
the-
the question, so I need a second on that.
Sorry.
Call the question. If somebody wants to end discussion, we call the question.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a second. So that takes us straight to a vote. So all in favor of ending discussion with call a question?
Okay, can we get a clear understanding, what are we
wait, we're
actually?
dealing with call the
Call the
question
question
first.
first. All right, so call the question. So all in favor of ending discussion, say aye.
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 All right, and those opposed?
No.
Nay.
All right, so it's 3-3, so call the question fails.
The board was calling
have
the
more
question,
discussion.
so.
Right.
That's fine.
I mean, if we end the discussion, we can move forward with getting an ordinance next time. Unless you're gonna keep on discussing it.
No.
Mayor,
Just
can I
like,
be excused for a second?
okay, sure.
Can I ask who opposed Blanchard, Seth, and?
Me.
So, can we reference the Angleton ordinance one more time? And I keep going back to the Angleton ordinance, because when we were talking about the chickens, I read every ordinance in Brazoria County. And the Angleton ordinance was very well written, and of course, it included chickens, ducks, and rabbits. But it put the responsibility on the owner, which is if you want to have private property rights, that's where the responsibility needs to be. It should not be a nuisance or a burden to their neighbors. We've yet in 2 discussions to have anybody say why it's a nuisance. But to look at that Angleton ordinance again, because it also specifically, it allows it as a whole, and then it goes back and it specifically addresses the FFA, FHA questions, if you look at that ordinance. And so I just think that let's move forward with it, and let's maybe look at that as a model and tweak it to where it suits Lake Jackson.
Well, again, I think maybe the reason why the agenda's written this way is to get clarification, because again, using the Angleton for example and some of the other ordinances, is that they do have a specific part of rabbits or whatever, in this case rabbits, in a general sense, and they have a more specific sense for rabbits for FFA or 4-H. And so that may be why it is written this way, is get clarification from us if we want to just open it up and make an ordinance to where it's open to everybody, or to just to student projects.
I personally don't want to limit it to student projects.
Okay.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Ms. Russell, on the definition of livestock in the animal ordinance includes rabbits,
Yes.
but the definition in the zoning, which we refer to for E1, does not reference rabbits.
That's correct.
So we have a conflict. Do we
State
have
of Texas, but hold on, state of Texas does not consider rabbits livestock.
Right. So in the, there's only one zone where you can have certain types of livestock, which is E1. So that's in the zoning ordinance. In the rest of the city, when you're talking about animals, is controlled by the animal chapter. And that rabbits was added to the livestock definition when people that are not present today decided that there should no longer be rabbits in the city. At one time they were allowed, and then they were not.
So if council wanted to, I mean, it could be as simple as changing the definition in the animal ordinance and striking rabbits from the
Right.
definition.
If council doesn't want to put restrictions or permits or anything on there, that would be the easiest way, just to strike the word rabbit from the animal ordinance.
Okay.
But we couldn't do that tonight. We have to bring that back.
I would, 2 readings, yes. Unless there's a rabbit emergency, and then it's 1 reading.
So I think that's where, that's probably where,
Well, again, it gets back to the question of, is, you know, again, like the ordinances, like the agenda item is written is do as a council, do we want to do the simplest thing? And that is, for example, you said strike that from the animal ordinance, and that allows rabbits without any restrictions in the city. Or if we want to go forward with the just restricting it to FFA or 4-H or whatever school projects.
But like the Angleton ordinance has components for both, right? It's got
Yeah.
non,
Well, the difference, I think, is that it takes away the permitting and everything for FFA type projects. I think that's the biggest part of where they separate it apart. They talk about if it's FFA, is there's some extra requirements of is that you have to have documentation from the school that you're approved project and all this kind of stuff, but then they also take away the permitting. Where if you don't have it, you have to have a permit.
and I kind of saw that too, which I think is further confusing me on the school tie-in, which there may or may not be, but, okay. And I just have, you know, again, a hard time with this, maybe it's the way the agenda item's written, it's just so broad, versus
Well,
being specific,
It is
like.
broad. The broadness is that if you go with allowing in the city limits, it's the broadest. If you don't allow it for city limits, but you allow it for K through 12, is you've narrowed it down, but you're still allowing animals, but you focused it in on a specific purpose.
And then there's a hybrid approach as was done in Angleton, where there's some rules for
Right.
non-FFA associated and then some rules for FFA. And again, it's that sort of the detailed, you know, provided by the actual ordinance, at least allows you to allows me to say, yeah, this
Okay, well,
is good and this is
let
not.
me just,
or
let me
whatever.
just offer this up, and that is that the next agenda item for next meeting will be, is to specifically for council to review and modify the Angleton ordinance. And then the motion will be is adopting this ordinance with these changes, and then we would vote on it.
Okay, as the
But
city.
we all agree on that?
And
Well,
I'm gonna tell
okay.
you, for rabbits, I don't wanna do that. I just say strike rabbits from the livestock and let
Yeah,
people have
this,
the rabbits.
this is a very wordy, I would rather bring back a list of things that they have and you guys pick what you
Okay.
like and what you don't like.
That's fine.
And I'll bring back, if there's someone else in another ordinance, I'll bring that back too.
So
If
you
it's,
give us a
if we
pick
go this far. It'll be a smorgasbord.
And you can make your motion any way you want to.
And that's what I was gonna
And-
ask.
But
how do
what
you
I was
have to
gonna
do
say,
that?
but you can make your motion tonight to say that you want to, your motion would be is to allow them in the city limits. And the only thing I was gonna ask you is that, that it may be beneficial to have the next discussion with what Sherry's bringing to the table. Us talk through it, check it off, and then you can make whatever motion you want to after we have that discussion.
I'm fine with being thorough. Because I do think everybody's voice needs to be represented, and we do need to look at that. I already know where I'm gonna land on it.
Right.
Ms. Russell, so at the next meeting, will you have a draft ordinance?
No, I'm gonna have a multiple choice.
Why can't
And-
we
Like
just
a pick
draft the
list.
ordinance? Why can't we just have a draft ordinance instead of a
Because
list?
we don't give you an ordinance until you've discussed. It's a procedure that this council came up with maybe 15 years ago, where we bring what we're thinking about to you and you discuss it, and then we bring the first reading after that. We're not gonna just throw a first reading in front of you with that, and you haven't seen it yet.
So basically, is it like what we did with the food truck stuff, where we had a concept, are we even interested in this or not?
Only this is less complicated than food trucks.
Multiple
yes.
meetings and
Right,
vendors and.
details.
It won't,
Details,
it won't
yeah.
take that many meetings to
Yeah,
draft
and
a
again,
rabbit
using the
ordinance.
food truck example is we discussed it.
It's different.
Megan brought back of a checklist of, here are the things that are in the other ordinances, and we checked off the things that we liked and didn't like, and then Sherry took that off and made the draft
Right.
ordinance.
But if we go through the Angleton ordinance next time, and I'm so moved to make the motion of, I just want to change the animal ordinance and take off animals, then we can do that at that time.
You can do it that time,
And then you don't need an ordinance for rabbits.
if
People
your
could
motion
just have-
passes.
You could just have rabbits at that point.
Yes,
Okay.
if that's what passes, yes.
Technicalities.
Okay. All right,
We're beating this rabbit to death.
yeah.
Then you can dress it and eat it.
So the commitment is that next meeting is that we will have that list. We will dedicate the time in the meeting to go through the list, check it off, so that then Sherry can go draft the ordinance. Okay. Is that all right with everyone? To move
Yes.
forward?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe I'll make a fool of myself, but oh well, that's okay. I just don't like any of this. Since everybody wants to do this thing with rabbits, we've been against the chickens, whatever it be. Can we take this to the vote of the people of Lake Jackson? And put it on there? Because I'll do whatever I gotta do. I'll go get votes, I'll do whatever, I'll go door to door.
If you don't like the ordinance, there's a method for you to get a repeal of the ordinance on the ballot.
And will I get that from you?
Or the city secretary, maybe, or, yeah, because it's just it's in the charter. We can pull it up and give it to you, just not, I don't have a printer.
I think instead of going this back and forth, I think it should go to the people of Lake Jackson, who we live here. I think everybody should have a right to vote on it, whether they want chickens or rabbits or whatever in their backyard. I think it should go to the vote of the people.
I tend to agree with that. I think some of the difficulty there is that, as I understand it, please correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're going to go to the voters for something and you do the 400 signatures, I would expect that you would need a very detailed,
Correct.
like, this is what I want passed, people of Lake Jackson.
Unless she just wants to repeal the ordinance.
Right, the repeal would be easy.
But the other one, drafting is.
Okay,
Right.
but here's the thing on the referendum, is like, if Ms. Hunter wants a referendum on, not allow, let me go back to the chicken people. If they wanted to bypass the council, because council couldn't come up with anything, then they write the ordinance however they want it.
Right.
And what that means is, say that passes with the voters, and something goes horribly wrong with the ordinance, and it's, allows all farm animals in Lake Jackson, we can't change that. It would then have to go back to the voters in order to change it.
I was trying to get to my real question, which is understanding that the drafting of the words in the ordinance is the most difficult part by far. Is there a mechanism for council to draft an ordinance that the voters get to ultimately decide to adopt, or do we have to adopt it and then they vote to repeal it? You see what I'm asking?
I think that would be, I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I'm actually in the charter right now.
Okay. And I don't need it today, but I mean, I do think that's the best case, because then you get everybody has a chance to chime in.
Yep.
And this is a rule been in place for a long time, and everybody's got their own feelings about it. And I know you guys have lots of people that are pro rabbits and pro chickens. People I talk to are on the opposite side. But I don't want there to be an impediment to going to the voters being the drafting of an ordinance that it's either this or nothing. So if there was a way to craft something that we all think is reasonable and then to send that to the voters to see whether or not they agree, I would be in favor of that. But I don't know that such a procedure exists, because we could of course adopt it, and then like Sherry said, the repeal of it is simple. Repeal it or don't. So that is a simple thing to get, right? There's no complicated drafting of language to put that issue on the ballot. So that's one way they could override us.
Yeah.
So now it look like we looking towards taking it to the voters.
Well,
Isn't the job of council to represent the voters?
I'm a voter.
Well, that is true, okay? But we did that with the chicken request. And the chicken request, when we came to the council decided no.
We're talking about rabbits
I know,
again.
just a minute, okay? I'm just saying, is that the council said no, but there's still a desire to have chickens in Lake Jackson. So they would like to either go through the process that we're talking about for chickens, because they want to go past council decision, and they have the right to do it. We have that ability through our charter for them to do that, so that's still available.
Vote first and come to an impasse before it's presented to the voters?
What's that again, ma'am?
Shouldn't council have to come to an impasse before it's presented to the voters?
No.
Well, yes and no. What we can do, we could, at this point, we could just go over there and say, you know what, it doesn't sound like we're going to get any agreement on council, so let's just take it to the voters. You could do it that way. But, we're still in the discussion phase, and I think that we still have an opportunity to discuss this and come up with a resolution, to some resolve here. So, again, where we're at right now is that we will, if everybody's okay with it, we'll come back with the checklist from Sherry next meeting, and we will work through that, and we will, from there, she'll have direction on writing the ordinance. Or if somebody at that point wants to just put the motion of making it all city limits, then that could be done there. I'm just asking, you could do, again, like I said, you could do that tonight, but I'm just asking if you could wait one more meeting, but it's up to you.
Like I said, I believe in being thorough about things, being methodical. I think we'll come back next meeting. And I think that Angleton ordinance is probably a good jump start for us. It does cover all the details. It goes through everything, and look at that.
it's the most comprehensive one I've seen.
And look at that.
Yes. All right. If we could, we'll move on to item 3.
Mr. Mayor, I have to follow JP.
Okay.
I wish everybody was this excited about the budget meeting.
All right, we'll move on to item 3, and this is going to be discuss and consider facade grant program guidelines. Megan,
Yes.
you rattle some paper a little bit before for Matt to get here, so we don't have to repeat.
I'd love to.
Thank y'all. Thank you.
Okay, so as council requested a few months back now, staff looked into a business facade grant program. This is, the one that we are presenting to you is not focused on one specific area. This would be open to all businesses that meet the parameters set forth. These are what staff is recommending. It is based on research I found with other cities or counties, similar organizations to us. I specifically looked in Texas, so if you look on the council communication, I think that's probably the best place to start. I put some bullet points of major highlights that I would like y'all to consider. And I'm going to just kind of get started. Is that okay, Mayor, or do you want me to hesitate?
Go ahead. You can
Okay.
catch up.
So, like I said, this would be open to all businesses that meet these requirements. The requirements that we have set forth is that it would be up to $5,000 per business/property. This amount obviously is open for council's discretion, whatever you think is best. We did set aside $200,000 for a program like this. That does not mean we have to use $200,000 for it. That could be reallocated to something else, or you could increase that amount. But based on the amount that was set forth during the budget season, we think that about $5,000 per business, just based on my discussions with businesses and the work of one business that has already been done, I think that's probably a healthy amount. You have to think of construction costs nowadays if you're going to do something like this.
And again, the funds that we've talked about setting aside are ARP funds.
Yes, yes.
American Rescue.
So my question is, do you want me to ask questions as we go, or you
That'd
want
be
to wait
great.
till then?
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever you
So
feel.
where are these funds going to come from?
That's what he just said. So it was, the amount was set aside with the COVID, the second round of COVID money. So the initial 3.3 that we received about a year ago, we just received the second tranche, but this would come from the first tranche.
So these are American Rescue Plan funds.
So what else could this money be used for in Lake Jackson other than facade?
This money can be used for anything,
It can
because
be used for
yeah.
any of the capital projects plans on the utility or general fund.
So
We wouldn't use these for operations.
to
No.
kind of piggyback off of the nays, when we originally talked about this, this all came about because there were conversations at some point where some of the small business owners felt like the city had said that we would do something. I advocated for that personally, because I feel like if we say we're gonna do something, we need to follow through on that. I personally am not comfortable with $5,000. When we were initially talking about that, I was thinking 500, 1,000, because if you take $200,000 and divide it up by 5,000, 40 businesses get helped. And I do question, with $200,000, is there, I mean, I personally am not comfortable with those numbers. I think that's a lot of money, and I think that some of that money can be used to benefit more of the city.
Exactly my point. There's a lot of infrastructure
Tons
failure
of
happening.
infrastructure.
Pardon me?
Tons of infrastructure
Yep.
projects.
And, we have streets that are failing, Oyster Creek Drive, Lake Road, residential streets. And I just cannot see spending that kind of money on facade. I mean, I personally couldn't, keep a straight face to tell our citizens that's what we're gonna do. I mean, I just can't do that, so.
And that amount was
That's
just
just
brought
me.
forward, that was
Right.
based on conversations that we had with the Business Association and then a few other entities, as well as, like I said, with some of the business owners. I believe if you do 500 to 1,000, I don't know how many participants you'll get, just based on the conversations I had solely. And the one project that is ready to be submitted costs them 7,000. So I think that's kind of where this number came from. Not saying that it needs to be this amount. You guys can adjust that if you even feel that this program's necessary. But that was just sort of based on staff's research and conversations.
And just to follow up on that was whenever I had the meeting with, and brought in the chamber, Brazosport Chamber, and also Small Business Association, SBA, the Small Business Association, their recommendation was, if you're gonna do a grant program for something like this, that you're not gonna do any value unless it's 10,000 or above.
Yeah.
Because Basically, her comment was 5,000 is gonna get paint on the walls.
Yes.
By the time you bring, because with this, the way this is written up, it's requiring them to go through, use a contractor and so forth, so it eats up to $5,000 real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, but we're talking about gesture here, so we're trying to make a gesture for helping a lot of businesses with a smaller amount than just a few businesses with a larger amount.
I understand. I was just clarifying. I'm not.
No, I'm just clarifying
in
too, so.
support or not. I'm just.
So if we did it that way, we'd have 20 businesses we
Correct.
could help,
Right.
which is not just,
Right.
Yes, so staff did bring forward a more conservative than what I think others tend to do.
Right.
This is, I will say, City Manager Mundo and I spoke, this would be one of the first grants that we've done for businesses, so we have no way of knowing what engagement is gonna look like, if we're gonna have, every business apply, if we're only gonna have a select few, we have no way of knowing, so this, if you did this, it would sort of be like a pilot program where we would then gauge interaction, and you could determine if you want to put more funds into something, a fund like this, if we used up all the 200,000 or whatever you allocate. But this is really a pilot. We have no way of knowing. Even if we took a quick poll of everyone, there's no way of knowing if they'd actually fill out the paperwork at the end of the day, so.
Yeah, for helping a small business, $500 to them mean a lot of money, versus $5,000 maybe for a big business. So we just trying to, accomplish, like I said, first of all, we have a lot of other places where we can spend this money. And if we do have to spend on grant money, perhaps a smaller amount, and still have money available for infrastructure improvement.
Okay, go ahead with your
continue.
presentation.
Yes, sir. So that is about the amount. It would be open to businesses or property. Next, talks about what would be eligible. Grants of this manner, they have to be with the facade, so you're talking anything on the outside. However, you will see that we limited that. We did not allow for roof work. We don't feel like that is something that we should get into as a city, because then you get into windstorm and all those other compliance issues. However, we did add in something that I found with another city, which was ADA improvements. A lot of them will figure out, some way to do ADA enhancement at their front door. But the rest, we also added in correcting building code violations. Obviously, $500 would not, or something like that would not get them far with that. But if they were aware of some sort of code violation, this could potentially help them in that manner as well. Okay. The interior renovations obviously would be exempt because this is a facade grant. The major determining factor for grant approval is going to go to the number of employees. After speaking with the organizations and businesses, we feel that less than or equal to 50 employees is reasonable, or this is or that would be a decision of council, a gross annual income of less than $5 million. Essentially, all of your small businesses in Lake Jackson would meet one or both of these criteria. That's also very standard. If we were to take the federal guidelines for what a small business is, it's a couple hundred employees and a lot more millions of dollars, which I don't think is relevant to Lake Jackson. So those numbers came just from what's common in Texas in our area. Ineligible applicants would be national chain franchises, government-owned entities, we can't apply for our own money, political or lobbying entities, or home-based businesses. So someone couldn't apply to do this if they run the business like a daycare out of their home. As you'll see in the further documents provided, the tenants must provide an owner consent form. So these next two, they really relate to just making sure that the property owner is aware of any renovations that may be going on with the tenant. So we don't want to give money to a business that the property owner's later going to come back and take it all down, or they're going to get into some sort of a civil conflict later because of it. Then we would also require proof of the business operating at that address. The easiest way we could think to do this was having them submit a utility bill from the city. We could do a certificate of occupancy or something like that, but we don't do a business license here, so I think this is the next easiest thing for them to get a hold of. The next two things are probably the biggest factors of this, and they're different than what other cities sometimes do. It's 50-50. we would not require with this draft a match for the funds, so we wouldn't say you have to spend 5,000 to get 5,000. We also would recommend that because a lot of businesses, especially in this climate, don't have substantial funds not allocated to something, we would recommend that the city pays the contractor directly. So the business or property owner would engage in getting 2 quotes. They would go with the lowest one unless they had a reason for going with the other one, which would be substantial and have to be determined by either council or committee. And then they would sign into a contract with that contractor, and then we would pay the contractor directly. So the agreement would still be between the 2 entities. We would just be paying. We do this with other things, city business-wise, but it would help them so that they didn't have to have those funds available up front. We think it might get more engagement at that point.
But the business owner would be who chose whatever contractor they want. We would have no part of that.
Correct.
They would choose their own.
Yes.
But they have to do two bids
bids.
and choose the lowest.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Why that?
That was just something that we found that was common so that they don't go out and pick the highest, but it is something that you could consider not doing because I don't think it would be in their best interest to pick the highest, knowing it's limited funds. So that was a common theme throughout most of the other grants. That's not something that we necessarily need to do. But
Give me an example of how we currently do the process of paying a contractor that somebody else uses.
so we actually, the most recent one I can think of is when we have like a wreck happen. So let's say it's through insurance or something. Like we had a city vehicle that hit a third party citizen vehicle, and they went and got the quote. We paid the auto shop, but then they initiated in the contract and they dealt with the auto shop on their own. We just paid the bill.
It's usually a small claim that we don't run through TML, like windshields.
That wouldn't meet our deductible.
Things like that. We may knock out a windshield, they'll take it to the windshield,
Yes.
company, and we'll pay the windshield company directly.
Well, we pay them directly.
Yeah.
The
but
only,
they
the only concern I have is that what protects us, and again, in this case here, is that somebody comes in and does the work for the business owner. And then there becomes a dispute between the contractor and the business owner. And, the business owner is telling us not to pay because there's a discrepancy. I just wanted, what
Yeah.
protects us from getting involved in that conflict?
No, that's fair, and I think,
We're just gonna pay.
yeah.
We're just gonna pay, and they're gonna have to duke it out on their own. We're not getting involved at all.
Okay.
They did the work. They
You turn
proved
civil
that
at
they've
that
done the
point.
work. I'm sorry. You don't
So what do we use to determine if we write the check or not?
I think it would be just if they meet the criteria, if they apply and then they select the lowest contractor, we would automatically write it once work was completed.
But, okay, so how do you determine work is completed before you write the check?
That's usually
Do we
determined.
go out and walk out there and make sure that they did what they said they're gonna do, or?
Well, it would
in
probably
this
be when the
case-
permit was completed, if I had to guess.
When that-
Probably be when the permit was completed, if I had to guess, the permit for the work.
Okay.
But that would just be my guess. We could figure that stuff out with code enforcement
Yeah,
as well.
I think, I really, it's a fair question. I think we would have to go out and see the work completed.
We'd have to inspect the work when it's done
There
anyways.
still could be an argument between the business owner, but we'd have to eventually we'd have to make a choice. Yes, they're upset, but it's reasonable, and we would cut a check. If it was something that we were probably disappointed in, then that's probably where,
Yep. Okay.
I think this gets city government way too involved in business stuff, frankly. And to make them have to pick, I mean, if they wanted to do awning that was $50,000 and we were willing to pitch in $5, I mean, why can't they get the $50,000?
Gary, can you just wait a minute, let us finish the presentation. I'll let you talk, I'll open up.
Just, I think this gets us way too involved in
and again,
people's business.
what Megan was trying to do, she's thrown a lot of
Yes.
ideas. None of them have to, any of the items is kind of a.
You don't even have to like the program.
a
This
cap-
was just
Right, but if
a
you did
draft.
like,
Doesn't work.
but if
Yes.
you did like the program, any of the items on the cafeteria list that she's provided can be changed or taken out. She's really trying to look at what other cities have done and trying to put her best guess on.
Yeah, and what they were successful in doing, so it's based on like cities and counties that are around us, but it can be tailored to whatever y'all think Lake Jackson needs.
The other thing that when I was looking through it also is, if we would go forward with something like this, I think the application process is pretty detailed. Especially
Okay.
when you start talking about asking them for gross income and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, there's ways to work around that when you made your presentation and stuff. But there's just a lot there that I think a lot of our small businesses would look at this list and they say, I'd like the money, but it's a lot of strings.
And I will tell you, this was the most simple application I could find.
I know, I understand.
So we could simplify it more, but this was.
But, you know, now, is this, the program you're suggesting here, is it available just to the business owner or the business owner or the property owner?
Both, sir.
Okay, because when we were talking business owner, I think. That's my recollection.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, if you're talking about capital improvement type activities, it'll ultimately be to the benefit of the property owner anyways, right? I mean.
Well, any leasee, when they do any kind of modifications, it's gonna, if they put it, you know, some of them require them, their AC breaks, the business owner is gonna replace the AC and it benefits the property owner. But what I guess what the idea was is that when we talked about this, I think what I recalled is that we'd rather the funds go to, any kind of funding would go to the business owner versus the property owner.
The property owners are the ones that I've spoken to, though. Because there's one that doesn't have anybody in his space right now, but he's absolutely open to updating his facade.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I don't think we should take it away from the business owner. I mean, the property owner, I'm sorry.
Yep.
Agree.
All right.
But just for clarification, the way that this particular one is written, if a tenant of a property wants to do some sort of modification, we're requiring that they
Yes.
get the permission of the
There is an
physical-
addendum,
Yeah, the
sort of at the
physical
back,
business
yes.
owner.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Any other questions before I let Gary, have Gary?
Yeah,
speak
do we
up?
have an idea of how many businesses in the city of Lake Jackson would meet these requirements?
We don't even have a list of businesses in Lake Jackson because we don't require a license or a permit.
So 200,000 divided by 5,000 gives us 40 businesses.
I mean, when you just kind of eyeball, you know, the city, you're probably talking downtown. A small, plantation.
Some of Oyster Creek,
There could be
perhaps.
some in some professional offices and stuff, but most of the corridor, you know, in the mall area and stuff are usually franchise businesses.
wouldn't-
That probably, that wouldn't comply, so, you know, I guess in the Kohl's Shopping Center, there may be one or two businesses that could comply, like, you know, Big Thai restaurant, some smaller ones, but most of them are chains. So I think it's really more downtown Plantation and then a couple of office areas that we're to be confined to.
So, but this is just a downtown, not city.
No,
This is
no,
not gonna
it
be
is
citywide.
This is for
This is gonna
citywide.
be
There's just not a
citywide?
lot of area. I mean, no, the big stretch of commercial area is mostly national
Okay.
chains.
So, are we proposing to earmark the whole thing and then keep it there until it's gone? Or earmark it for a week and for a year, and if 2 people apply, then we get 190 to use on streets, or what's the?
That's what we could, that's stipulation we could put in there, is say that there'd be a certain window.
You have a month to apply.
To apply, and then, or you could say that it's there until it's consumed, or however we want to set it up.
That decision has not been
That
made.
decision had been made.
Yeah, so you could even say, you have a month to apply, at the end of that month, you know, if you have 100,
Yeah.
then everybody gets 2,000. Or you,
Well, it's just-
you know, you
FSA versus HS.
Well, that's a problem you run with it.
That's
You know,
your-
that's a problem that you run with a lot of grants, is that what they do is they open it up, and not enough people apply to even consume it.
Yeah.
And that's the problem you have with a lot of these federal grants that are being put out there now. that they keep spewing out there is that people aren't applying for them. And so then the funds sit there, and after they sit there for a period of time, well, then the federal government decides, well, it's sitting here, well, let's go spend it somewhere else, because it's already been appropriated.
Yeah, or you could have the opposite problem where you had 100 people, you were
Right.
expecting 40, 100 people, and they thought they were getting 5 apiece. Now they're getting 2 apiece, and they feel like, oh, you know, I got
Right.
lied to because I thought it was going to be 5 and it being 2, but that's
Well, I
just
think
all the
the way
money
this
there
is
is.
written
I
is
don't
that-
know.
I
That's
think the
hard.
way this is written, though, is that if say we have 40 people apply, and some apply for 5, some apply for 2, or whatever, is that you would approve enough of, as much funds as you have, that's how many people you would approve.
Yes, sir.
So that may be, that at the end of the day, you have so many people apply that you could only approve 20, or whatever. But, no, it's up to 50, so you'd have, and up to 5,000. So
Like
you'd have-
Modesto said, we're talking about mostly people who are going to be wanting this is downtown folks.
What now?
Modesto just saying, you know, most of the people who are going to be wanting this
Well,
grant.
downtown Plantation, there's the shopping center over there where HEB was. That's all
Jackson.
private businesses. So it's just scattered around. So it's not just
But the bulk of them
downtown.
are going to be downtown.
Well, you could say a bulk. I'd have to look at the numbers, but that is a grouping that's available. And there's several different groupings that of areas that would be available. But yeah, it's a small list.
How do we advertise this? How do we make sure that there's no question of, like, we didn't go out and pick our top 40 businesses and they get the money, versus that everyone had an equal opportunity to apply?
So my recommendation, there's an FAQ sheet in here that gives like it's a one-pager, gives major highlights of it. My recommendation would be that we put that out on social media, the website, but I would also like to do some sort of a mailer. So the post office actually has an option to send it to businesses. I don't think we would necessarily worry about excluding any. I think they would exclude themselves based on the parameters, but, so that could be an option for us. That would be my recommendation.
We would also contact the business association, because
Yes.
the business association is more than downtown.
Yes.
Chamber.
And
Yeah.
the chamber.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no magic bullet. We'd probably just have to try to tell
We just go to several different places.
the places.
The
I started domino effect.
The other question was, in your presentation, you talked about that there's a scoring, and that there was score, but the scoring's not in our packet. So how would these be
Oh,
scored?
apologies. There is no scoring. It's you either meet the criteria or you don't.
So then it becomes first come, first serve.
Yes. Yes,
So
sir.
it's is it first come, first serve, or pull it out of the hat?
I would think it would be first come, first serve, or we can do where we just do a first tranche, see how many apply, and then we go off of that. But I think as Councilman Broadus said earlier, but either way, this is set up first come, first serve, but anything would be open at this point.
First to
Well, I mean,
apply or first to pull permits?
First to pull permit.
See,
But
Now
I
you're
do like the
talking.
idea. I do like the idea of not scoring, because then you open up a whole nother can of worms.
It gets political at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yes, sir.
I would say it's first to apply, but we probably have a set deadline
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you have a set
for
deadline.
first round.
Yeah, but if you knew about this grant coming up, so you could apply first, so you know, it could be a lot of folks who would want that, but didn't get the opportunity, so.
Well, we wouldn't pay just when you submitted your application. We wouldn't start processing until the deadline. So we'd set a deadline, you'd see how many applicants, and let's say there's 10, then you start working, through that. And if that didn't meet all the funds.
We can go back to that.
You could go
What you
back
do
out, or.
to help address that is what you would have is that you would, once you got, if you had agreement on a grant program, you would announce a grant program and say the grant program is gonna open at a certain date. So you have time to communicate to everybody, and everybody has time to prepare. And so by that date, then they start sending in their applications. And then you should take it by, not date of application, but date of receipt, that it's received into the office. And so forth. So that's mechanics that you can work through. But that's the way you can address some of your concerns there, Vinay. But it gets back to some of the different elephants in the room that, like, Rhonda brought up, was cost, and Vinay also about the cost and the dollars and so forth. So,
I mean, we have list items on capital list projects that have been there for years that we don't have any money for. And they are all needing funds to be done. And so, since they have been on the list for all these years, obviously they're important enough for them to stay on the list for all these years. And if we have money available, it would behoove us to spend the money on those capital projects and get them done. So most of the citizens in Lake Jackson who drive on these streets get the most benefit of this money that was given to them for the, the federal money and the tranche money.
They all
So
suffered through COVID.
That's just my opinion, and I do have just one vote, so.
And just the other concern right now is that, I mean, later on, we're going to approve another large sum of cost on downtown. And I'm worried about when we start breaking concrete around these 8 businesses, we're gonna be up against their slab busting concrete. And I'm concerned about we do damage to their slab that we have to repair, or that yes, if we break a window, the contractor's gonna pay for it, but the contractor's already talking about coming after us for 96 days. And so I'm concerned about doing anything
Contingency money, right?
until we get this project downtown finished for us. And and if we finish downtown and we come out good, and we're not having to go find $200,000 to go finish downtown, then I'll feel a little bit better about this. But it doesn't mean that the work that you've done is not good work. It's good work. It's a starting point for us to decide in the future if we want to have a grant program. At least we'll have something that's approved by council. We can pull it off the back bar and use it. Wish we could have had this at the start of the pandemic whenever I brought a similar program, but then we didn't have any money. And that's the problem we also run with us, is that normally we just don't have money sitting around. And the only reason why we have this opportunity is because of ARPA funds, but everybody on staff can tell you that they could spend those ARPA funds 10 times over.
Modesto's done it a few times.
Yeah, and so he's promising that he's not gonna spend that 3.5 until we all get to talk about it.
3.3.
3.3.
Is there a time limit on those funds? So like the
No, ma'am.
$200 that we have earmarked for this, we can set it aside, get through the downtown
There's no timeline.
renovations,
Yeah,
and
we
it can
have,
still be there.
yes, we have this set up just like our capital projects fund. It's there in the savings account right now.
Can it be carried over?
Yes,
Yes,
from year
sir.
to year.
This 200 came out of the
From
last,
the first tranche,
The first 3.3.
the first 3.3.
so this money's already set aside. We've already decided we were gonna do something with it. We just got another $3.3 million, right?
That's correct.
So we've decided with the last set of money that the federal government gave us, that we were gonna take $200,000 out and do a grant program to help with our businesses. Our businesses, as we all know, are what bring in all of how much of the revenue of the city?
Like 63%?
60%, how much is it?
The majority, over 50%
Yes, sir.
of our revenue
So we're
comes from
trying to
sales
help
tax.
our businesses, which in turn bring all the revenue into the city. I think it's a great thing. I actually think the 5,000 is a great number. I mean, if we have 40 businesses come in and apply and we run out of money, that's a really good thing. That's showing that we're gonna be able to help those businesses, and there's $3.3 million that came from the feds that we could do
Well,
it
hold on.
again.
Came from
Federal
us.
government
no,
asked for the
yes.
money.
Came from us.
That money is ours to
Yes,
start with.
I hear
It
you.
just came back into our community.
But not something
Government
that we
has no
thought we
money.
were gonna get. That's why we used that.
Well, you mentioned these businesses and all that stuff. We're already spending tons of money on, changing the downtown and improvements to downtown. So they're getting benefits already from the downtown improvements. We're spending millions of dollars there. So, look at the downtown, what was before. Their property values have enhanced multiple times over with the downtown improvements. So I feel like we've already done quite a bit for the businesses and for their improvements. It's time for the other residents who also live in Lake Jackson and pay taxes to get the benefit of some of this money, because they need to, you drive down Dogwood, you drive down, I can start naming you streets. Please get out there and drive and feel all the bumps and the wear and tear in your automobile, and drainage issues we have in certain areas. Water sits in the street after it has rained for days, and we need to spend money on that.
So-
Can I go ahead and get some of the audience, since they
Sure.
signed up for? So, Justin, you signed up?
Oh.
I'm getting the people who signed up first to talk about this item.
Justin Pulliam, I had some questions in the spirit of transparency. Is it permissible for the city to spend funds to help people correct code enforcement violations? Is it permissible legally for the city to spend public funds to help people correct code enforcement violations?
Through a grant process, I believe so.
So it's the consensus of the city administration that it is legal to help people correct building code violations.
If we have a grant process together, which we're trying to do, we believe so.
This is being funded with the COVID assistance funds. Many counties and cities across Texas use those funds to create grant programs for assistance with bills, with residents, with homeowners. Has the city of Lake Jackson previously had a grant program using these federal funds to do programs that assist residents who live here?
Yes.
And can you explain what that was?
Yes, we gave a rebate to all utility customers in the city of Lake Jackson, residents and businesses.
So this was a water and sewer and trash rebate,
Water and sewer.
and it was limited to that.
Yes, to all residents and all businesses.
Was there any sort of grant program regarding rent assistance or mortgage assistance
No.
provided by the city?
No.
That wasn't allowed within the first.
That was done with the
COVID
county,
amount.
through county. There's funding available
Yeah.
through county.
So the limit of COVID fund, federal fund assistance to residents and homeowners of the city has been a rebate, and that was it. Just a rebate for the city utility bill. No other program for grant or otherwise has been utilized to help homeowners in the city.
That's correct.
Okay, so here's why I am on this, and this is why I'm at this meeting tonight, because I'm really busy, and I do this stuff because I care, and there's always a lot of projects to work on. For instance, the chicken issue out in Blanco, it's very interesting, more interesting than the chicken issue here. When the city is bulldozing homes of people who are so down on their luck they can't help themselves, they have no money to fight City Hall, they don't have money to fix their own homes, and they get dozed. And now, in the city of you want to talk about a facade, the city of enchantment, that is a facade. Our uppity, yuppie downtown, where we tax all these poor folks that live here who can't pay their utility bills, who can't afford to fix their homes, who are worried if the police are going to throw them in jail for the weekend for a traffic ticket over not securing their child in a car seat that they can't afford. Yet now we're going to take these public funds, and they're already paying for the downtown. And our federal income tax system, let's see, who pays that? The income earners, everyone, all the people, not just the businesses. It's not just the businesses. The city may get 60% of revenue, and I don't know whether that was including sales tax or just property. I don't know what that stat was, but if it was sales tax,
Sales
the
tax. Sales
well, the businesses don't pay sales tax, the consumers do. Consumers pay sales tax. And now y'all are going to come up here and give handouts to businesses? Are you kidding me? Councilwoman Seth, again, I think you're right on this issue. It's way too much money. And if y'all approve any of this, I think y'all will be known nationwide. And I think there's some really interesting Fifth Amendment issues that could be litigated out of the city as well. I hope that y'all cancel this. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you. John?
Think about how much $5,000 would have helped Ms. Hartman. Think about what you could do with $5,000 given it to the destruction board that's built of realtors and contractors, and then again you're trying to give more money to your chosen contractors. How much, you guys are bulldozing old people's houses, and you want to give $5,000 to people making $5 million a year. You haven't done anything for the poor Miss Hartman, who only probably made $12,000 a year. Nothing. You bulldozed her house. You said you helped. You didn't help. You gave her a list of contracts. She could have used this $5,000 to fix her home. This is disgusting. You guys are absolutely disgusting, every one of you. As I sat there and watched that lady's house being bulldozed, while you guys sat around and laughed, drinking your coffee, I sat there and watched Miss Hartman cry across the street as she watched her childhood home being destroyed. And you guys want to give $5,000 to companies making $5 million? You're disgusting.
Yes, please. And I'll need your name and address.
Cynthia Roy, 104 Poppy Street, Lake Jackson. This all began.
Miss Roy, pull the
Need to-
mic down.
mic.
to you.
This had nothing to do, this all had to do with one street in Lake Jackson where the facade was taken down, where the rain is coming into the building, where sun is coming into the building, where we were told that we were going to have help with the facade, not so much with the facade, but help in any way that we needed. And we came to you about that, and then the grant started. Let's give it to everybody. So it didn't have, it's not, these people don't make $5 million a year. These are very small businesses in a small area that asked for this because they were told that they were going to get help. And that's where it all started. So the money that you have for grant, we were very appreciative that you would go through a program or look for some way to help us to where we don't have to replace all our windows. We don't have to replace everything. A small awning on a small business is $7,000. And to replace the windows and doors that are leaking now because so much of the, we had how many feet out was that we had? 12 feet? I don't know. 16 feet of covering over that sidewalk to keep those fronts from being, the sun coming in and all that. Our tenant is putting up blinds. We put up an awning. The water is still going to come in. The windows, for 2 windows and a door, was quoted at $40,000. We can't do it. There's no way. So we put an awning up. And that's where it all started for us.
Right.
That's
Thank
all.
you. Gary, I think you wanted to talk yet.
And Gary Hunter, 117 Mesquite. Once again, I just want to play devil's advocate here, and keeping in mind about how things work in Washington, D.C., how do we prevent kickbacks? Say a business owner gets the grant, he gets a quote from a contractor, uses up all $5,000. He only does $1,000 worth of work and gets kicked back $3,000.
And I personally think that that's something that we need to ask every decision that we make is how is this going to get corrupted? How's it going
Right,
to get,
exactly.
maybe we've got good intentions and you've got good intentions,
Mhm.
but what is the potential for a problem?
Right. That's
So I think that's a valid point
Yeah, okay.
for
That's
sure.
all I
That's
have.
why I had questions about
Yeah.
the specifics of the contractors.
Yeah, there's people looking for loopholes 24/7.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay, good, yes. Kent?
Can I speak real quick?
Sure.
Like catching up on a few points. Okay, my name's Kent Devine, 52 Cedar Court. First off, you had said at one point, Mayor, business owners probably not going to be open to that information. COVID broke us as business owners. With COVID happening, I'm like, business owners, we give up a lot of information in order to help, in order to be here today. Majority of businesses, I think, had reached out and gotten the allotment, the PPP loans from the government. At Bodega, I actually couldn't apply for my first one because I opened up a month before COVID happened. But I know the process. I know you give up a lot of information, but it's the ability to help. And then the contingency, the idea of contingency on the construction of holding this money until the road construction is finished, I do think it's a bit of a stretch. As it was brought up, this has already been earmarked at one point in time for the idea of giving a grant to businesses. My business doesn't make $5 million. It doesn't make $1 million. So throwing out numbers like that is just crazy. And the idea that it helps just the businesses, that is simply not true. Through just the construction alone, I have not had a paycheck from the business. I go into work every day. I pay my staff well. My staff gets taken care of. An idea of a grant like this is the ability to make the outside of my building, which I can't afford to float right now. I have let go of 6 employees in the past month to float through this construction. I'm back to COVID-style staffing. I'm back to working my own night shifts again. And talking to my wife about the idea of training her at Bodega so then she can work on some night shifts so I'm not away from my family all the time. The ability to make a business small better, on like $5,000, that gives you a good bit of things you can do to make the front of your business better looking, which, yes, the roads are nice. That is a good idea. Making the front of the businesses better looking to match your roads, that'd be great, because everything that's going on right now, the business owners can't afford to fix things up as long with the road construction. And the idea of the road construction helping the businesses right now is really hard to swallow. Personally, I know my numbers on what I'm out right now. I know how much I plan to lose for the duration of this construction project happening, being the second section to be complete and then the corner of most likely the last section to be complete. The roads will be pretty when they're done, and it will improve the property value. All the property value improves, though, is the triple net that most landlords do collect in the end. So my property rates are actually just going to go up because of this road construction happening, and my rent will go up. So to say that making the roads prettier is going to benefit the businesses in the long run, it is a double-edged sword there. There's always money that can be used in multiple different uses, multiple different things. Yeah, the idea of helping the public is good. But saying that the idea of helping a business is just helping the business owner, I simply cannot get behind. I have 10 employees at the bodega. We have over 20 employees at the fill station. The idea of improving the front or the facade of a business, I think would only improve the lives of all the employees that are there. And those are families. Those are people that live in this town. And so it's not to argue that people are corrupt and it's just going to go into the business owner's pocket. I think that's just wrong. I'm like, if that is not what small businesses are about, as far as I can tell in my years of experience. But thank you for y'all's consideration.
Kent, let me ask you a question, though.
Yes, sir.
Right here, we're talking about a facade program, okay? The other option that, when I talk to businesses out there, were that they said, well, you know, during pandemic, okay, the government shut them down. And you still had costs that the city required you to pay for dumpsters and so forth. And so the suggestion that I received from some businesses is that a facade program would be great if I was planning on someday, or I was planning on doing something with my facade, but they said that it would be better if you found a way that we could be recouped for those costs that we had to cover during the pandemic when we were shut down, and you know we had to spend for, like I said, dumpsters and so forth. So I mean, that would if you went with a program like that, that would put dollars in your pocket as a business owner to where you could choose to do whatever you want to with it, either do a facade or to do something with your employees or whatever. It wouldn't be as much as what we're talking about here, because dumpsters aren't that expensive, and we can't do water payments again unless we do it for the whole city.
Okay.
But
if the argument is, though, what are they going to do with the money, and is it going to be used in a corrupt way? The idea of making a facade grant and the idea of you are going to see that money be spent. If it's 40 businesses, good for those 40 businesses. Just like the federal government, when they handed out money, the PPP loans ran out very quickly. It takes an active business owner to be in business nowadays. So I would think that would be received well. And then the idea of arguing that it was used in a corrupt way, I think would be easier to be shown. I'm like, because I don't know what I would specifically use this for. I don't know why I'm arguing this. I just think there should be more pros to this argument than there is negatives.
You could use it, I mean, we've got the new patio area that we put in front of your.
I'm like, the patio area, I'm like, I could do park benches and planters for all I care, and make beautiful planters, and I'm like, sure, it would be super awesome to walk by that every day, and I think other people would agree. I'm like, there is ways it can be improved, and it benefits the entire city public that walks the streets, that go downtown, and not in a corrupt way in any sense, in my mind, other than spending it on dumpsters.
Right.
Okay.
So just to be clear, I don't think anybody was saying that the business owners were gonna spend it in a corrupt
I
way.
know.
Just there's loopholes that contractors get into and stuff, and like what's mentioned, like kickbacks and things.
Yeah.
So I think we do always have to, regardless of what the issue is, we have to ask those questions of how can this be misused, so that we're very careful in how we approach things,
Yeah.
and not just slapping something together that, we're all gone, and you know what I'm saying? So
I understand.
in no way did that mean for the business
I'm
owners.
not terribly
Yeah.
concerned. I do
Yeah.
not consider myself a corrupt business owner, so.
No. Well,
Yeah,
I don't
you're
think
good.
we have
I
to.
was not feeling anything on that weight, so we're
So-
good.
Oh.
Thank you all very much.
Thanks.
Thanks.
All right, so the agenda item is to discuss and consider a facade grant program guidelines. So Megan made a presentation of guidelines. What do we want to do from here? I guess the first question is hearing some of the questions that were here, do we think that this is a good time to go forward with something like this? You know, or if we don't go forward with it, go ahead and refine it so that we do have a tool that whenever we may decide to pull the trigger some other time, then that it will be available. I'm just, I guess, putting that out there.
So to me, this is the hard part of making these types of decisions. And, you've got your business owners. I've known Mr. Roy did my first fireplace in my first house that I still live in. So you want to help these people because they're not $5 million. They're not making $5 million. They're, barely making payroll most of the time. So you do absolutely want to help them. But I think this comes the hard decision of, okay, we were allocated this money, and ultimately our responsibility is to be good financial stewards of this money and to spend it and allocate it in a way that benefits the most of our citizens in our city. We would love to be able to help everybody. There's tons of programs that could be implemented, absolutely, to help citizens. My question is always gonna be, how much do we want government, period, involved in those things?
That's bulldozing.
Yeah, so, I just think we have to be very careful, and this is the hard stuff that somebody's gonna be pissed off at us one way or another. But ultimately, are we good stewards of the money?
Okay.
For me, this was not what I had in mind. These numbers were not what I had in mind when we initially talked about this. To me, my family is a regular family. $5,000 is a lot of money.
Correct.
Can I say something?
Sure. You have to give your name now.
Yeah, Smokey Roy, 104 Poppy. Why am I being filmed? I just want to ask. distracting.
I understand, but he's got the right to
Okay.
do that.
But anyway, going back to the north parking place. In the 50s, I'd like to know why the city let the business owners build a porch over the front. I mean, I'm not being sarcastic. I mean,
I understand. We would never do that again.
Yeah,
hopefully.
but,
Because
so
we're not doing it today.
whenever we purchased that building, I was under the impression that that was, later learned that city property, that's not, you didn't buy that. But the reason it was put there was for a reason, and that was to keep the water out of the building. Those fronts are not designed to not have an overhang. So call it an inconvenience fee, call it a divorce, we divorced in the city, whatever you want to call it. It seemed like the city should help, do something. I think y'all were gonna spend $250,000 on some nice, maybe a 3-foot awning or something for everybody on that street.
No, it was, the
Whatever
numbers
it
were
was.
huge. The numbers were huge.
And it got voted out by
Well,
Anderson.
no. Okay,
But,
let me just back up. Okay, so we'll go ahead and finish what you're saying and I'll.
well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is,
It wasn't voted out by Anderson. Okay, I'll just clear out. What we did was we went to the business property owners and said, do you want, or you would, if there was a way, would you want to have a facade back put up? And that's where we were getting that information. We had already been looking at the cost, and the cost was gonna be huge to put them back. We already spent $425,000 or whatever to remove y'all's failing facade.
no, not all of them were failing, just.
Okay,
just-
it was.
just one.
Anyway, well.
But that's beside the point, I understand.
So
I
we
understand
removed the
that.
facade, and, so we already spent, so we did go back, and we did work with an architect to come up with a design. And the design was going to be freestanding, it wasn't gonna be attached to y'all's buildings. And that just continued to add to the costs. So last number I remember hearing was well over $350,000 or above to put the awnings back up. So it was, and the reality is that we just didn't see that we would have those funds in the budget that we had for the project. You're already seeing that we're having overruns today.
Yeah.
And so, so that's, and then whenever we went with the vote and Dr. Anderson was the larger majority owner of properties on there, within his vote, yes, carried, it was majority rule, I guess.
Plus, I don't think council ever agreed to that, so.
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
I don't
the-
think they
that
agreed,
was
but there was
speculation.
but y'all
That-
spent money on looking to do that.
Right,
You
right.
paid architects some pretty good money, I'm sure,
Yeah, but
for those drawings.
But I'm just saying that, you said it was approved, it's not.
Oh, yeah,
That-
okay, did
that
I say
was-
approved?
Yes,
I
you were
said-
going to
I meant
spend the money. Yeah.
Presented, yeah.
So, I mean, just want to
But,
clarify
you know,
that.
I'm not, we've spent a lot of time up here, which that's fine, I don't have no problem with that, and, it just seemed like the city would do something to help, that at least, at least that, where you removed their porch that they had for, 50 years.
I mean, in due respect, city did help you by removing and helping
No,
you pay
they
for that.
hurt us, actually.
No, help
The
you
city-
paid for, because you could have done that on your own dime. So.
No, it's on your property, y'all did that, y'all chose to do that. I wouldn't have, I would have left it there. I don't know about Dennis Garrett next door, he has water coming in, I don't know how it's gonna do about that, but those buildings were not designed, here's the bottom line, those buildings were not designed to not have a porch. That's why the porches were there, because the city and those business owners got together, and they, I don't know, they kicked in, or we don't know, nobody knows.
Nobody.
It was in the 50s.
Right.
But, the good old days, but anyway, I've just thought since it was kind of a special deal, it didn't affect everybody. It affected, 8 business owners. I went ahead and put an awning up because I had to, because there was water coming in. I had no choice. So I can't get 2 bids, I got a good guy to do it, and I paid good money because the price of aluminum's up so high. But, you know, I just thought maybe whenever we had those meetings, it was all, you know, what can we do to help y'all? And we're gonna help, and it's gonna be, you know, and everybody, I signed a petition not a petition, I signed an agreement that if they damage anything, they wouldn't be responsible, fine. So, you know, I went in with just trying to, with the thought of you'll get more honey with, you know, you get more honey. You catch more bees with honey than you do with vinegar. So I wanted to just be nice about it, and that's where I've been. If y'all want to help us, fine, but I just wish you would see our point of view. Whenever we bought that building, we thought, okay, this is how it's going to look from now on, you know, paint it ourselves. We did all that. So with that being said, you know, I guess I was requesting some help because y'all offered it, and then I asked a question a couple meetings ago. What does that mean? So I guess we're finding out. You know, we'll find out what that means. But I don't know how. If you wait till after the end of the construction, I don't know how you're gonna keep from damaging those other buildings where they have water, because those buildings are not made to take water and direct sun. So
I don't know. I don't know what the dates, I don't know anything about the construction of those buildings.
it was 19, I talked to David Mellis. He said but around 1950, late 50s.
Right. And I don't know if the awnings went on after the buildings had been up for a while or what, so I don't know any of that history. I come from Clute, so I don't.
Okay.
I grew up from Clute.
Well, that's all. Thank y'all if
Yeah.
y'all can help. If not, you know, that's the way it is. But, you know, that's about all I have to say. Anybody have any questions about what we've gone through?
Nothing against eight businesses. It's just you have the rest of the. Everybody's saying, well, where, you know.
Yeah, but nobody else's awning in Lake Jackson got taken off. Just only these 8 businesses. This really should be treated as a special deal, I think, because of that situation. I don't think you should open it up to everybody. That's my opinion.
Well,
I think you should open it up to the people that you affected by taking their porches off. I don't know how you're gonna do Garrett's. I don't know how he's gonna keep that water from coming in. He has water coming in now.
Is it from the roof or from?
Yeah, no, it's coming to that corner. I don't know if it's the roof or the floor or what. But those buildings weren't made for harsh environments. They were made to be protected, and I guess we'll see what happens. But the awning seems to be keeping the water off. I could just put a 3-foot.
Yeah, it looks nice.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, can I ask Sherry a question?
Sure.
Sherry, I had a question. On CDBG grants that we get, they're confined to our designated CDBG area, which is a low to moderate income area. When we were talking about this grant, we were trying to make it citywide. Would it be fair for council to ask that you do a grant that, or could they ask that it be designated for low to moderate income areas?
For this grant, or for you talking
For
about
this
the-
grant, if you wanted to tighten it up.
You would
if you
need to
thought-
define low to moderate.
Right.
Normally, low to moderate income refers to household and not business. But that 5 million could be reduced to whatever the average is for a local business.
Okay.
You could do that without a problem.
Okay. So where do we go from here? There's,
I think our best use of that money, I mean, this is just my opinion, I think the best use of that money would be more broadly used in some of the infrastructure projects that we've had. I mean, we've got a lot of unfunded state mandates coming our way, a lot of generators, things that would keep people in water and electricity. in general,
Or
like-
sewer line replacements.
I mean,
Because the ARPA funds, there's not any restrictions on where you go spend those dollars, okay? CDBG funds, but we're not in the running for any more for anytime soon.
No, we're probably 2 years away from being eligible for CDBG funds.
I think he was just making a comparison.
Well, no, I'm
Yeah.
just looking at different funding sources of
And we can use our CDBG funds for facades. Well, we haven't. We've usually used them for, public infrastructure. But again, those aren't available for another 2 years.
Okay. Any action on this tonight? If there is, I'll have to have a motion on it. Megan, thanks for your help and stuff. I
Thank you for
appreciate
your
it.
work.
And, again, if you take some of the stuff that we talked about and just make some modifications to it, so that in the future, if we decide to do any kind of grant program, it's there. All right, so we'll move on to item 4. Discuss and consider first reading of ordinance that establishes regulations on food trucks and food truck courts. Sherry.
Well, Modesto needs to read the caption.
Oh, that's right. Uh-oh, it's first reading.
And I had
It didn't say first reading.
I had read on here. Excuse me, everybody can go to the restroom. I look for this.
If I stand
There
up,
it
then I'll
is.
have to go, so I'll just stay seated.
2256, 2254. Ordinance number 2254. This is an ordinance.
56.
Oh, I got the wrong one. Sorry. 2256. This is an ordinance of the City of Lake Jackson, Texas, amending Chapter 50, Health and Safety to add regulations for mobile food vendors and mobile food vendor courts, providing that all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith shall be repealed to the extent of the conflict only, providing for a penalty and providing a savings clause.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mundo. So, this is, the food truck ordinance, first reading. What I've done is taken chapter 50 and reorganized it. That's why the whole chapter 50 is here, to have it make sense. Goodbye, Modesto. So, so the only real changes besides reorganizing chapter 50 is that Mr. Singhania asked that I put permanent electrical in,
Right.
and I did that. So, and that just makes it double clear what we mean, that it's not generators. And that's the only changes since the draft was discussed at the last one.
Okay. Any questions on this? I need a motion. First reading.
Mayor, I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 2254, allowing for administrative inspections of, wrong one, sorry.
Long night.
2256.
Ordinance 22256, as written.
I second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
That was with glasses on.
With glasses on, yeah, eyes are tired. All right, we'll move on to,
I can do the second reading if you'd
all right,
like.
we'll move on to item 5, adopt ordinance number 2254, allowing for administrative inspections of massage establishments to check for compliance with state law. Second reading.
I think she left.
Yes, and the
This-
lady,
There we go.
I mean, I can speak for her, what her issue was, that.
No, she's here.
Yeah, well, no.
I need to read
Oh,
it.
she left.
Yeah, no, hang
Oh,
on.
she left.
Hold up, folks. Hold up. Yeah,
Okay, hang on, time out.
Sorry.
This
Yeah.
is an ordinance of the City of Lake Jackson, Texas, amending Chapter 50, Health and Safety to add Division 5, massage establishments to the Code of Ordinances to regulate massage establishments and allow for administrative inspections, providing that all ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith shall be repealed to the extent of the conflict only, providing for a penalty and providing a savings clause.
Okay, and so this is second reading, normally that's on consent, but I wanted y'all to see I made the changes you asked for. I added a definition of semi-nude because Mr. Broadus was curious. And I made the two exceptions to, someone who has an interior unit and a multi-unit building, so that they do not have to, they can have a direct passageway to the main business of that building, like if they're in a bank, when you walk out the door, you're in the bank.
Yeah.
And then, the other one is that, the clear and unobstructed view of the reception area, because they probably, I mean, their landlord's not gonna cut a hole in the wall. And on the hours are now 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
So, may I speak?
Sure.
So,
Just a second, Renee's gonna, you talk to one person.
yes,
Yeah.
and one of her concern was that she has clientele who work shift work, day and night, and sometimes she meets them whatever hours for massage at their convenience. So having hours between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., would that be a problem?
5, 8?
It's from
5 p.m.,
10
5 a.m. to 10 p.m., yes.
We don't know, I mean, does she meet them at 3 o'clock in the morning?
She said,
May I ask?
Yeah, go ahead, step up, please. Give your name and address, though.
My name is Melinda Hearns, 234 Sleepy Hollow. I was here when the girl addressed this. She is a reputable massage therapist.
yes, she is.
And
I can vouch for
she
her.
is. And they asked me what I thought. At the time, I didn't think, because I didn't know I was going to be asking any questions, but I thought about it all day today. A long time ago, when I was younger, I had a client who liked to get up and work out at 5 o'clock in the morning. She wanted me to be at my place at 6 and give her a massage so that she could go get her shower and then go to work. I don't see any problems with that. You know, if somebody wants to, and if you know them, I mean, there's a
That's
fine
exactly it.
line there. You
That's
don't just do that for anybody.
Right,
But
that's
I've known-
exactly what I'm talking about. She
Yeah.
does not want the restriction of from 5 a.m. to 10 p.m.
She doesn't want?
Does not.
What does she want?
I don't
Whenever
care.
she-
I'm just
operate
speaking
whenever she
about how
wants.
she was, why she even
I
brought
mean,
this
she has
up.
an interior office, she does not have she works out of the bank building.
But didn't you bring this last meeting and then Sherry changed it for you?
Right.
6, so I.
And you changed it for 5, but now we want to change it
I'm
again?
just telling you what she's saying, okay? She
A
waited and
new
she left,
business
so.
owner came forward and had
Oh,
a concern.
okay.
So,
I was
problem is,
confused.
The point of this was to cut down on the non-legitimate people who are going all night doing.
All she was saying is
Stuff.
unfair for people who are legitimate businesses, who like to cater to the clientele, who are shift workers in this town, and, you know, they get off at midnight shift and they wanna, and see, she would feel comfortable enough to go meet them at 3 o'clock in the morning, if that's the time they would have said.
I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning.
I'm just telling you what she said, so,
Okay.
unless she told you something different.
Yeah.
Well, if y'all want me to put.
No,
No.
I'm
not,
No,
I'm just-
I don't agree with that. The 5 to 10 I think was good. I don't agree with
I'm just telling you
24
what she
hours.
was here for.
No, there's,
So,
all right,
No.
so we have, we've
Right.
explained the changes, and so we have the changes, this is second reading, so if there's not any further discussion, I'll take a motion on this.
Move
As
for approval.
presented. We have a motion to approve by Sahanya. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Seth. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. So that one's done.
May I start from the beginning and take a picture so I would see all this, because I never got it.
We'll give you a copy.
Yeah, it's.
You want a copy of it?
I would like that.
Okay, we'll get you a copy. All right, we'll move on to item 6. And this is update on Northwood pedestrian crossing at Farm Market 2004 and that way. Modesto's got some info.
Yes, Sal and Sabrina and I met with TxDOT staff a couple of weeks ago and talked to them about improvements here. The big takeaway that I did get from them is that they have an overall safety bid package that is probably going out in the spring.
They said March.
Yeah, probably March. And that they're looking for a lot of safety things for all of Brazoria County, for the area office. And so a lot of these they were taking into consideration of putting into that overall bid package for all of Brazoria County. So they were quite open to, listening to some of our concerns. The first one, we did get guidance from them where Sal's going to prepare a sidewalk plan, making that connection and submit that under their permitting process for them to get approved. It still, doesn't happen quickly in our time frame, but within a 6-month time frame, which is quick for TxDOT, that's probably what it is. So we'll drop the design and submit it under the permitting process to connect that. They were open to that. The other one was that they were open to was looking at a continental crosswalk, and that is, I'd given a picture in a earlier email, was
The Beatles.
the Beatles the crosswalk, and what that does, that also pushes the stop line back, which was wider, which one of the residents made a suggestion. They find they're doing those now. They believe they're safer, so they thought this was a prime area to put in a continental crosswalk in. They were also, they had mentioned the idea, in conjunction with ours, was having a curb, doing larger landings, which they call ADA landings, to make it more safe, where really right now just the sidewalk just stops.
Right.
And so they're looking about making a larger
Gets them away out of the
landing in
intersection.
those two areas. And then putting a curb where we were actually adding a sidewalk as well, since that's their property. So they were open to that as well. Crosswalk times, they were going to speak with the light division in Houston, which controls the lights, and adding a leading pedestrian interval, meaning, Milford, can you explain that? He's my bicyclist on staff.
Essentially, when you push the button at the crosswalk, and when the light turns green going your way, you have the walk signal go on at the same time. Sometimes that can be a risk because cars that are turning right at that interval can come into contact with pedestrians crossing. So what you actually have is a few seconds before the light turns green, the walk signal comes on, giving the pedestrians time to get far into the crosswalk before the light goes green, and letting the cars know that the pedestrians are there, so it makes them more alert into turning right and potentially causing conflict.
So they were looking at that as opposed to just lengthening the crosswalk time. Now, they may do both, but they mentioned the leading interval was what they were going to take consideration to. Then crosswalk all stop, the staff there could not answer that request. They said they would need to discuss that with the Houston district. So we couldn't get an answer if that was a possibility or not yet. The traffic light arm, Mr. Broadus had brought that up. They were going to talk to the Houston Light Division on adding the possibility of a new longer arm. That is at that first intersection. I label it item E there. It's a short arm, and it's a little confusing for some of the traffic that's stopped at the light. They may see the light all the way across the highway, and versus the shorter arm, and to the discussion from the residents, but it just came up while we were talking at this intersection. And then the reduction of speed, they would have to do a speed study of looking at doing a gradual reduction of speed at the intersection. So it would drop to maybe 45 as you get closer to the light. Sometimes you see that versus 50 all the way through. What that does, if it's 45 miles an hour, and that's probably the most you could get, then you can make the speed crossing during school times reduced down to 30 miles an hour versus 35. It's not the best. They didn't think they could get it down to 20, but it's a slight improvement there. But they were open to talking to the Houston office about doing a speed study there as well. So that's what we walked away from the meeting on the discussion. Again, the sidewalk we would do immediately through a permitting process. Everything else is going to be done with a safety item or discussion with the offices, the Houston office. The safety items of the continental striping and the curbing could be done within the next year. Because if they open bids in March, it usually takes 4 or 5 months before they start construction on those.
Okay. And then just a quick update on talking with BISD. I'm trying to get hold of Miss Nelson. I got hold of her today, but we couldn't talk because she was at urgent care with her child, with her baby. And so we weren't able to talk today, but I wanted to get an update to see if she's been able to reach out to the other parents that have kids at that age range and see if they would be if there's any interest in the shuttle. So don't have any information from her. I did talk to Danny today, and Danny said that they're open to the discussion with them, and that he wants me to pass on to Miss Nelson his phone number so that she could contact him, and that they could talk about the next step forward. And I told him to keep us in the loop on it, so that I don't want it to drop. And so he said that he would commit to that. So I'll get the information to Ms. Nelson and follow that to see if they follow through. He said that in 2020 that there was similar discussion and there wasn't enough demand at that time. There was just a small number of people that were interested in the.
Did he give any indication of like what number they would be looking at to consider it enough?
No, because they're looking at, because now they have the option of using the smaller buses, and so they don't have to use a CDL. So before they were looking at using a big bus. So the number I would expect to be a lot less to be able to do it. So the challenge he said that they will face is that it's not a unique situation. He can give us, he gave me intersections in Freeport, intersections in Clute that are almost as challenging, but he says this one is still the worst of those. And it's just that, it'll be it'll be the board to decide if they want to do this, if they want to approve it or not. So I'll make that close that loop. That's all I have on that one. Item 7 is this. Oh, Gary, you good? Okay, Gary asked. Okay. Item 7 is discuss recommendation from the Traffic Commission for limited right turn lane on Dixie Drive and Bradswood Drive going northbound. Sabrina.
We had a meeting with BISD. As you all know, Bradswood High's basically finished all its little remodeling and everything. And they're looking at different traffic patterns now for pickup, drop-off, and all of that. One of the concerns that they had, could you call up Dixie there? That's the sign that is currently on OCD down by the Dixie that they would like to do. They've requested that we do a right turn only lane for certain hours. Just those morning hours is what they're looking at. It would be down on Dixie before you come to Bradswood, Dixie northbound heading up there. The location has not been established yet. That would depend on John Toscano, my traffic guy, going out there, finding us a really good location and seeing how long of a lane that we're actually looking for. The light itself is approximately $4,000 just as a soft quote. And then it would be signage that John could make in-house. So if we have to buy blanks, which you have to buy multiples at a time, you're looking maybe max $200, and that's multiples that we would use for other projects as well.
So there's a delay. There's a time delay on getting the lights, correct? The flashing lights.
Yeah, there will be. I don't know how long it will take to come in. If it's like everything else, everything has been on a huge backlog.
Could we put the signage up before the flashing lights?
I don't think you can because you don't really have anything given adequate notice to people. I can talk to somebody about that and see if that's a potential that we could
We're
could
just
do
trying
that,
to
but
see if we can move
I
it
don't
along
think so,
quickly.
because I think you really need the lights to let people
Their
notice.
attention,
Yeah.
What, the traffic light is not holding enough to turn right onto?
There is no
Brazos
right turn
Boulevard?
only lane at this location, sir. They want to install a light so that during, like on OCD, you can only do like during 6:30 to 9 or whatever the hours are. You can only turn right from that lane, and then the rest of the day you can carry that lane on through. They would like one of those to be installed down here on Dixie, down somewhere around in this area, depending on how long a backup they think they have with traffic that is trying to turn
I
right
thought it
onto
was a
Brazos
turning
Wood.
lane, but I guess not.
No.
I'm sorry, sir?
I just thought it was a turning lane there.
No, sir, it is straight through.
So you're going to determine by traffic count what the proper distance would be to start that?
I have a traffic engineer that I can contact and see, and yes, we can look at that. I'll also be talking with Chief to see what kind of issues they might be having there in the morning, and we'll try to determine how much of a lane they need.
Yeah, this has been requested a few times, so now we're able to get it to traffic and get them to.
There is a center lane that's nobody using.
Well, no.
There's no.
No,
left turn.
There's not a center.
there's
lane
not a
there.
center lane on this one, sir. They want it down on this way so that you can only go here. It only starts getting a center lane on the other side.
But
There's
there's a
really,
center lane but doesn't go to the intersection, doesn't have anywhere to go. There's a center lane there for the business.
are you saying on this side?
Yeah, there's a center lane there. But it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't help.
Right.
Doesn't help.
Right,
There's no
yeah.
left turn there.
Is
Maybe
that
you can put a
right?
Dixie wiggle there or something.
No,
Renee, is
it's
that
not a,
right? 'Cause I-
it's not a center lane on the opposite side.
Yeah, no, I guess he's
Yeah,
right.
there
You're saying
is.
that there's, yeah, that's,
For all those businesses turning
But you
in.
can't use it. It's not. It's
left
just a-
doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, you can't.
It just doesn't go anywhere, it's still
There
there.
used to be apartments right there years and years ago.
Don't let
Yeah.
Keep Lake Jackson beautiful look at that. They'll put trees in there. So.
My 2 cents is I live by the other light that we've referenced, and it doesn't work. It flashes and nobody cares. I mean,
You mean it physically works, it just doesn't
oh no,
curb
it doesn't
behavior.
accomplish what you're
Okay.
doing. We're gonna spend $4,000 for a flashy sign that nobody's gonna pay attention to. It's pointless, I think. I mean, I get what they're trying to do, because that right there is a circus in the mornings. With the 9th grade kids and all of Brazwood, it's chaos, but nobody's gonna adhere to you trying to make that a right turn only. I think you're wasting money.
Let me ask a question, because it's been many years now since I was at that school, but did any part of the remodel change how the other entrance is utilized? Because when I was in school there, everybody drove down that back.
They have not yet made that determination, sir. They're still in the process
still-
of determining how they're going to do that.
The field house?
Yeah, by Mammoth Lake on the other side.
They did buy 2 of the houses on the other side of that and
Yeah.
put those down. There are some plans that they have, but nothing has been solidified and is definitely that it's going to happen. This is the earliest thing that they have requested because,
Okay.
as you say, it's chaos down there in the mornings. So this is what they would like to see, if maybe this would assist.
There's just one lane, so how,
There are 2 lanes.
Two.
There are 2 lanes.
You would make
two.
just this
Here
lane
and
right
here.
here.
never mind.
Yeah.
So I was thinking in my mind, I would hate to do something here and then have them do something awesome down here and resolve it all. But even if that happened, you're just talking about yanking that sign out of the ground at that point. If
You can move the light
if-
and the sign, yes.
Yeah, theoretically. So okay, all right.
So what dictates that we have to put a flashing light?
I don't know exactly off the top of my head. I would imagine, just like Mr. Blanchard was saying, if I don't have any kind of, I'm going to have to put advanced signage anyways for this to let you know that there is a change coming up, because everybody's used to this just going how you want to. The flashing light is more for a safety issue. It's not that I have to have it to install the signage, but it lets people know, hey, there's a change, you know. Theoretically, they would be looking and they would notice that this light is flashing and they would pay more attention to it. Hopefully, that's what we would like them to do. And with this being a very busy street, I would prefer to have a flashing light on there. I'm not saying that I have to. I will be talking with my traffic engineer to see if, how much lane I need to have, exactly what kind of signage, exactly what, if I do need flashing lights or anything like that. They had requested to look like what was down at OCD and Dixie Drive right now. This is just going to
right now, what I've brought to you is a mirror of that. Once I've talked to the engineer, there might be a little bit of changing going on there, at which point, we would come back to you guys or into traffic as well to see what we're gonna do.
So let me ask you
And
a question.
the flashing thing may help keep somebody from getting in that lane and being confused, but I don't know if it's, I'm with Chase. I mean, I don't know that it's going to improve the odds of it being
And how is that gonna tie in?
any more successful. I mean, I think it's something we need to do, but I don't know that we need to spend the 4,000 for the flashing.
So on the arm there, like on OCD, it also says by the traffic light, the right turn
We would
only
install
during-
one like that as well.
Yeah, maybe we can install that, start there, and mark it on the markings, sign on the, without a flashing light, because I'm like Mr. Blanchard, eventually when they move the traffic for Ninth over by the other side of the Slate Field, this light is gonna be useless. And they have enough room on the school property to actually put in a right turn lane, continuous right turn lane at
This
that
is
point.
different. I don't know, I'm lost there with what you're saying.
So,
This doesn't have anything to do with what they're doing down by Slade Field.
no, I'm saying for right now, there's a lot of traffic coming here, requiring the right turn only. But once they open that intersection back there, you may not have that much traffic turning right.
That's only gonna serve, all that's gonna do is serve ninth grade campus, that intersection that's being discussed over on Slade Field. That's just ninth grade campus.
Still.
The most of your population is above ninth grade that are driving, and they're gonna be coming this traffic is gonna stay the same.
Okay.
Can,
And so the behavior, we're warning people to get left
Yes.
if you're not going to school.
Right.
Right.
Right, because then you could jam up.
yeah, I mean, I
20
understand the
kids.
concern on not having a flashing light, but if you didn't have a flashing light, then everybody would say, I just didn't see the sign. I mean, it's hard to, I don't know, that's.
I'm just
you have a
looking
lot
for
of- You have a lot
direction.
of signs, I don't know if that would get seen. And again, how much the flashing light helps, I don't have a good answer there either. I mean, if I was driving down that during school, I would just know not to get in that lane.
Right.
And that's only for, what, an hour or two, certain hours,
Yeah, from,
Yes, sir.
from 7 to 8:30?
6:30, something along those lines, yes, sir.
yeah.
Is that school zone there during that time? There is once you
No.
get on
There's no
Bradford,
school
but
zone
not on
on
Dixie.
No. Well, yeah, on
There's no
Bradford,
school
not
zone.
Dixie.
Yeah. So,
In front of Slakefield? It's not.
No,
On Brazzeswood Drive it is, but I don't even think in front of.
not
Slade.
in front of
Too
Slade.
far away.
So I think.
my suggestion would be, and again, I can't make any kind of motion, my suggestion is that if we could approve this to go forward with the signage without flashing, and to get it in place. And if your engineer comes back, no, you got to have flashing, then we put flags on it until we get the flashing in.
We tell the district, come up with.
So I make a motion, just like what he said.
There you go. Let's let the school pay
With
for
the
it.
addition of the light, sign on the top of the arm.
Yeah,
also.
the
Okay.
light, the sign on the light on the.
Okay, I'll do some further investigation in this and see what our
Somebody just
options
said
are,
that,
if,
sure.
what we can and can't do.
I know you-
So,
And who would talk to the school about absorbing some of that, since it was their
Modesto.
remodel that precipitated this?
this has been requested many times over years, and it's just, it got brought to traffic now, so. This really doesn't have anything with redesign. Redesign is the next intersection over, it's gonna cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, so. That's a different fight or discussion, So do y'all wanna give direction now to move forward and just put a sign and
Yes.
and wait, and if we require to put flashing, then we'll put flashing on it.
Yeah, if
So I
we
did
can
make a
avoid
motion.
flashing lights, let's avoid them.
Okay.
So I did have a motion, I just didn't make.
Well, I didn't know if it was an motion or not.
Yeah, it was a motion.
Okay, so what is your motion, please?
The motion was that exactly what you said, along with the.
You're not gonna get away with it.
Okay, so, on Dixie Drive northbound, with the intersection of Brazzeswood Drive, put signs up to indicate the right turn lane to be right turn only between the hours as they're requested, along with also the same sign on top of the traffic arm on Dixie Drive.
Ditto second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
I hope you
Any
got
further
that, Sally.
Yeah, any further,
will help me.
I got it.
Sally, call
Okay.
me if you-
any further discussion on this one? Nobody had anything for this, okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries.
Who seconded that, I'm sorry?
I did.
Rhonda. She dittoed it, she said, so. All right, so we'll move on to item 8, accept
You halfway there?
John Littig denial to serve on Traffic Commission and consider appointing a new member to fill the unexpired term of Brad Whitehead.
So I looked back through all the applications, and one that stood out, somebody, Jay Foster, somebody who has been to our council meeting several times, but what I think is unique about Jay's perspective for Traffic Commission is he's been involved with fire department and EMS. So, you know, we talk about other things like speed bumps and all that kind of stuff, and I just think being on the back of an ambulance with a patient gives you a little bit different traffic perspective.
Okay?
Yeah, I'd make the same argument for the
Yeah.
guy from the sheriff's office. I mean,
Josh McCain.
yeah.
Yeah.
Where's he? All right. Well, I'll need a motion if there's any more discussion.
I'd make a motion to nominate Jay Foster to fill the unexpired Traffic Commission spot.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, item 9. Okay, update on list of resources to be provided to owners of property considered for the demolition by the Dangerous Structure Determination Board. David.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I was asked by staff to compile a list of resources that could be given to property owners whose homes are in a state of disrepair that may be subject to being debated before the Dangerous Structure Determination Board. So, as you can see, we put together a list. Most of these are local, state, or national resources. Starting out with Brazoria County Housing Authority, they can provide applications for Section 8 housing. They do have a housing grant program that would take down a house and rebuild on that same property. Habitat for Humanity, they do new construction homes. Their website did mention some home repairs, but I didn't see much in there as far as that's concerned. But it wouldn't help a homeowner who hasn't lived in their home in the past 3 years. As a matter of fact, they must not have owned a home in the past 3 years in order to qualify for that. And there's income limits for both of these programs, income limits that the applicant must meet. Then we start getting into some state and federal resources, USDA Rural Development Single Family Housing and Repair Loans and Grant Program. Once again, these are loans, low interest loans, up to $40,000 and grants up to $10,000 for repair improvements, modernization, and health and life safety programs or improvements. The Department of Veterans Affairs work with veterans. They can provide low interest loans for repairs. The Houston Galveston Area Council, they do have a program called Area Agency on Aging. They can provide residential modifications for repair. And then, of course, FEMA, when there's a presidentially declared disaster, and there is another program that would provide home improvement and rehabilitation counseling. That's the NIDHCA Cooksey out of Houston. This list was used with information that we gathered ourselves as well as input from Mr. Wells. Again, we only focused on programs that would provide repair or rehabilitation services to homeowners, and this list could be utilized, but it would have to be utilized broadly and given to any owner, regardless of whether it's a owner-occupied home or a vacant house or something owned by an individual or a large property owner with multiple properties.
And the first program is the program that we participate with the county.
Yes, we've done that twice for two individuals, for two properties.
And we presented this to Ms. Hartman,
Absolutely, we did. We printed off the application and took it to her.
but their funds ran out.
That's correct.
Okay. And David, I had another question
Yes, sir.
on the HGC Area Agency on Aging. That's a new one for me. Did they give a dollar limit that they help on, or what do they help on?
Not that I could see, but I would definitely do more research on them and
that
contact
something
them to
we can
find
find
out.
out?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Specific to, I guess, our community.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have to be very careful. We don't want to give out specific names and get into all that, but can we do like Brazosport Rotary Club, or like get in contact with them to see if that's something that they would want to participate in? If they would want to be on a list of resources.
We have contacted the Rotary in the past, and we did actually present to a Rotary group a specific case and a specific house and the needs of the people who lived there. They chose not to take action on that, but once again, we did put that forward. We did attend that meeting. We did provide the evidence and spoke a little bit about the residents involved because they were interested in that. However, as you're correct, Ms. Seth, we do not want to publicly give out people's stories, people's information, without them actually making that. If they apply for these things, absolutely we'll assist where we can. But
Some of the challenge you have with some of these groups like Rotary, Rotarian and stuff is that resources are still very limited. And so they can do stuff like wheelchair ramps and maybe do some painting or whatever type stuff. But, you know, like going through the process of replacing siding or anything major like that, they haven't ever taken on a project like that. And a lot of other groups that I'm with, Lions, is the same thing. And then there's some church groups that I've worked with before. And again, it's just very limited because they use what few dollar resources they have that's contributed through their church to go do stuff. And that can be a challenge.
Yeah, I think our experience has been, like, especially with the churches, is, you know, possibly utility assistance, you know, or rent for a month, rebuilding, I don't know.
We did have one church group that came to us recently that talked to us about trying to change their program. Remember, and they were trying to do, instead of, they wanted to do.
They did want to reach out to more, you know, have a direct contact with more people in need. So they were looking at, you know, specifically, I think they may have been looking for programs when we do sandbagging or handing out water and stuff. We didn't really talk about at that time, you know.
And they're still redefining
they're trying to define
what they want to do.
What they want to do. I mean, right now we're probably a little timid, and we're just trying to approach or look at established programs where they've actually said we can assist in this, but again, it's limited. The one that we really are familiar with, you know, is the one that we're a part of, and that's with the county, where we pool, all 18 cities pool our CDBG funds to use, you know, in this manner. And so we have a housing program.
So there's a couple of additional points here. We will be making contact to the local Rotary groups, the Lions Club, and one of the questions we will be asking them is, how involved do you want to get? How often do you want us to approach you so that we're not overtaxing the local organization? We don't want to flood them with a bunch of information and then have them feel like they're not doing enough when they provide the community with so much already. The other thing is we have to first look at, we can provide information to the residents. And in the two cases of homes, one occupied and one non-occupied, that are the topic of discussion here, the applicant has to make those contacts. we can't make those applications for them. We can provide them with the information, we can print off the application, we can hand it to them and say, we highly encourage you to do this, but they have to do it. And then once they have done it, we can work with those agencies on process, on permits, on timelines, on any of that information. And our office is always open for that, but we can't actually make those applications for these individuals.
Okay.
Nor should that be the government's responsibility, either way.
Justin, do you want to speak again?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Justin Pulliam. So, great segue into what I wanted to say. And the deal is that when the government gets involved in something, you have to treat people right. My preference is that the government gets involved in very little, maybe nothing. The government chose to get involved with something that is so radical, I can't believe it even exists in the free country I live in. Destroying someone's home. You can be a felon and not, in my opinion, have a punishment that's not even that severe. When you do nothing wrong other than being sick or poor or otherwise unable to maintain your residence and property to municipal nannies standards, what are you to do? You don't have money for a contractor. You may be so worn out you don't have time to go do applications for other entities. What was interesting on the list that's on the board, the city of Lake Jackson is not listed on the list as a resource, and that's disappointing to me. I corresponded with the city manager. I didn't receive a response, but some things I brought up in there is maybe we get, to the extent that the city's going to continue doing these things, maybe there's an automatic appeal process where to the district court where the city funds and a competent attorney for the property owner to sue the city in the appeal process, because if they're losing their home because they can't construct it, let's get real, they can't afford an attorney. They probably don't have the political connections to get one, right? That's part of the issue here, is that the city is focusing so much on its facade for certain groups of people who live in and around the city that I think it's forgotten who really lives here. And there's a lot of people who live here who don't have a voice. And that's why Mr. John Gray is so popular, because they feel he's their voice. So when you're the one attacking, you're not helping. When you're bringing the dozer, you're not helping. I saw the emails and text messages that y'all seen it, so I don't need to rehash it. But the gist of it is that Mr. Walton gave her his cell phone and said, I'll help at any time with getting it inspected, whenever, and connected her with church groups that would help empty out the house. What she probably wanted to do was keep the house. Yet y'all go on and blast, journalists who literally just stand on the public sidewalk. Like, that's all John did. John did go in and get a flag or something that these guys were, I guess, too scared to go get or something. As I didn't know about this until he went live. I don't think anything there was sufficiently labor-intensive or technical that I couldn't have done it. The problem is I can't comply with nanny's regulations, so I couldn't have done it. But I would have done the work for free had that been permissible. So there's an issue here when the city gets involved in some other people's business. And it's unfortunate that, so the burden should be on the complainant. Like, normally if I were to say that Mr. Gray violated my rights civilly, then I would go and hire an attorney and I would pay court filing fees, and the complainant would have that financial burden. But there's this situation here in these cities where a neighbor who has a disagreement with their neighbor can go whine to the city, and then all of a sudden the city takes that fight over for that complainant. And the defendant probably, again, doesn't have much because they're in that situation in the first place. This list is not sufficient. If the city's going to continue to do this, please, and get, feel free to go above and beyond what's already being done. Y'all could be groundbreaking here and getting some sort of program. Maybe you decide, hey, we'll put in an offer to buy the house, whatever, not any sort of like coerced offer, whatever they feel their residence is worth, you pay them. The city does whatever they want with it after that. I think people might not want to pay for that as taxpayers, but the point I'm trying to make is stay out of people's private property, and you don't have these issues Well, when you choose to get involved, you have to treat people right. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
All right, thank you. John?
So I've already spoken a lot about this issue already. I'm trying to be a little more calm now. All I did was stand on the side of the road and film the end actions of what you guys did. That's all I did. For to be attacked by Ms. Seth, called a moron, say I just did this for money. Do you think I really just do this for money? Because I spend more than I make. I spend more than I make. I am out helping the community. I stay in this community. There was something in your messages, I was a seagull activist. I'm flying all around Brazoria County. I know. You didn't say, no, he's not a seagull activist. I know. But I fly all around. You're right. I might be a seagull, and I will fly all over Brazoria County. After my daughter died, I saw every bit of government just lie, cheat, steal to cover it up. And I will always, like I said, you can't shut me down. Till the day I die, this is what I'll be doing. And I'll be doing it probably in Brazoria County because I'm never leaving here. But I'm going to digress a little bit. That's all I did, guys. I stood there and recorded. I never said she had 30 minutes notice. I said I had 30 minutes notice. So I had 30 minutes notice. I started a video around 8, like I tried to say earlier. I started a video about 8:30. At 8:15, I had members of the community showing up with trucks to help Miss Hartman. Imagine what I could have done had I had 30 days to help Miss Hartman. Imagine if this council, before you destroy someone's home, you said, hey, these are the list of the homes we're going to destroy this month. Imagine what I could do with that information. But don't worry, you won't get away with it again, because I will be at every destruction board meeting. I will stream it live, and I will let the community know exactly what you're going to tear up next.
So, are you done?
Sure.
I don't want to interrupt you.
Sure, no, go ahead.
So, first and foremost, even if I were not obligated to defend your right to say what you want and how you want, I would do it anyways, because I believe in it. And I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you that every level of government, city, county, all of it, needs watchdogs. And so as much as I do disagree with some of the methods that you and Mr. Pulliam take, I applaud I didn't realize you had this much passion about it. So I do appreciate that, and I do think that we do need watchdogs. I just personally, as much as I would fight for your right to say what you want to say and how you want to say it for whatever reasons that you choose, that's not my business. I would say, I don't think of myself as anybody special. When you say elected official, it kind of makes me look around and say, that's these people, you know? Because my family is not wealthy. We don't live in a fancy house. We go paycheck to paycheck. But I'm here for that same reason. And so I guess what I'm saying is I'm the same person before I was elected. I said the same things. I would have said the same thing before I was elected. And being an elected official, I still have those same rights. Now, I apologize for calling you a moron and Mr. Pulliam, because that's just not a professional. I would give my kids a spanking for calling somebody that. So as a human being, that shouldn't have happened.
Do you consider yourself a freedom-loving Republican?
I do.
So, of what country? Like North Korea? Because in here you said you want to shut John Gray down.
Hang on. I think that this is a discussion that still needs to be. We can't get off of this
Okay.
very far.
All right. I just want to say a few more words. You said you wanted to shut me down, and it is kind of related.
So let me finish what I was saying here, and it will segue into that.
You know what? Let's talk afterwards. How about me and you off camera? Me and you'll have a conversation.
That's fine.
So
Because Sherry's gonna.
stop bulldozing. Stop bulldozing the houses. Put Brazoria County Scanner up on this list.
So also, just so you know, when you asked about, and I don't know if I didn't know this until this situation occurred, we do actually post in the facts exactly what.
No one reads the facts.
That's a whole other conversation. But what I'm saying is that it's not being hidden. And when I saw your post, and I don't blindly defend anybody. I don't blindly defend city staff. I made the phone calls, and some of the questions that y'all were coming up with were legitimate questions. And I asked those questions. And after I got done asking those questions, I was satisfied that the staff members were not, they had done above and beyond what the parameters were at that time.
Like I said, I don't care if it had 30 minutes, 30 days, 30 years.
I
Government should
understand.
not bulldoze private
And I
property.
understand that's a fundamental belief that you have. And I defend your right to say that and to believe that and to.
So you don't really want to
argue
shut
for
me
it.
down? You were just kidding.
Not shut you down, but what I said, I wasn't even bashing you when I talked about, you're making money. I get so aggravated with people.
Do you know what I do with that money? Have you ever seen any of my
Can I
videos?
finish? I get so aggravated with people tiptoeing around, like, oh, the scanner guys, the police chaser guys. Just say people's names. Let's stop being deceitful. And I'm not talking about y'all, I'm talking about everybody else.
No.
And I said John Gray, and.
Oh, I'm
you-
John Gray with Brazoria
Yes,
County Scanner.
and-
That's me.
And I'm not saying you, I'm saying other people, oh, those scanner guys. They won't just say your name.
Some of them may not know my name.
And the fact is that, you know, you have said marketing and anticipation. I don't begrudge anybody making money however you want to legally. And you're doing whatever you're doing legally. But what I'm saying is that the narrative that was being created at that moment, I have to defend the city staff.
Is it because you were on the destruction board at one time?
No, never.
Okay.
I've never, no, that's a fair
Okay.
question, and no, I've never been on that board. So I'll talk with you afterwards, but it's not shutting you down, but when you step up and say, this is not right, you know, this process is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this. I have an equal right to stand up and say, listen, this is not a correct narrative, and I disagree with it.
When I
And
see,
so when I say shut it down, I mean, I'm not going to stand idly by and watch people who I feel like are being thrown under the bus, be thrown under the bus. I
And-
just don't think it's deserved. Yeah, that could be you one day.
I'm not going to stand idly by while houses are bulldozed while elderly people sit
And
across
I
the
applaud your
street.
efforts to do that.
That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody say a comment?
Sure.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilwoman Seth, I'd just like to say I fully accept your apology, and I thank you for that. That's incredibly rare to see in government, for someone to apologize. Very rare. That speaks a lot to you. And for me, at least, this is not about like any sort of like rehashing what happened.
Yeah.
I report, and it's very hard to get information, and it's great that you're wanting to engage in these dialogues because we cannot get anywhere without a dialogue.
Up a shovel, I go pick up a shovel. That's what we need more of, you know, but to throw these people under the bus who,
I didn't throw anybody on.
Well-
I simply recorded a lady getting her house bulldozed. I
Yes.
said maybe 5 words in the entire video.
Yes, I appreciate the apology, and I appreciate that we're gonna have this dialogue out in the open and have these dialogues, because that's the only way society gets anywhere, and yeah, I think that's great of you, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything else, David?
Any further questions, comments, or concerns?
I'll tapped out, David.
Well, we'll keep adding to the list, so as we learn more, and like you said, you're gonna be talking to some organizations.
I will. Like I said, I will be talking to the Rotary groups and the Lions groups mainly about what can they do, how much do they want to do, and what resources they may also know of.
And again, when we talked about the staff, the list could be, resource specific. This list can help, in more major ways. Some of the other groups may be in more smaller ways, ADA ramp or rent assistance. So, and every situation is different.
And I would agree with the gentleman, had the community or people in the community further known about this, then perhaps they could have swooped in to help. But a lot of us don't even know our next door neighbors' names or what their situations are. And so, the community could go a lot further to help each other out.
Well, the other thing is, as we generate this list, we can also share with other communities, because they have the same challenges. Right, item 10, reject bid submitted by Sentinel for Recreation Center pool pack in the amount of $615,000, Robin.
Yes. When we went through the bid process, there were some changes that we made. We had the one bidder. When we got ready to do the contract and took it to Sherry, because we made changes to the specifications and different things like that,
Modesto, I'm going to say this wrong, but I'm sorry, Mr. Rundo. But anyway, so we do need to take that back and go out for the bid process again.
Yeah,
Sorry.
what we tried to do, and then Sherry brought it to our attention, the way we had the bid written.
Yeah.
Usually when we try to value engineer, it's on construction projects. But when we bid a construction project, we ask for numerous line items. We ask for linear feet of curbing, linear feet of concrete and stuff. And so we really have it broken up quite a bit by line items. On this one, it was a lump sum bid.
Right.
And so we didn't have individual prices in advance of the items that we asked for the value engineering. So, the contractor, could give us a number, now that would have been completely different had we asked for a line item bid. So really, we're gonna take this, reject it,
Yes.
and then go out and do the things that we're subtracting, but ask for a separate price for those. And then if we decide, we can add them back in, if we need to. So
Yes. Sorry. Thank you so much for that.
All right, any questions? Need a motion on this? Item 10.
Mayor, I make a motion to reject the bid submitted by Sentinel for the Recreation Center pool pack in the amount of $615,000.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. All right, we'll move on to item 11, approve change order 15-19, or orders 15 through 19, an increase of $40,070 and $70.30 for Phase 3 of Downtown Revitalization Project. Megan.
So as you can see in front of you, we have the next group of change orders. These do total up to $40,000. You can see the breakout. It's mostly for traffic, utilities, and then windstorm compliance. Staff recommends all of them moving forward as well. We have been negotiating with them, so we're comfortable with all of these.
All right.
I'm happy for any questions you may have.
Any questions from council first?
No.
All right, John, I think you had down that you were going to talk about this one. All right, and Justin has left the building. All right, so I'll take, if there's any questions, we'll take a motion on this.
I'll move for approval of item 11 of the regular agenda as presented.
Thank you.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, carries. David, businesses.
I always look forward to this part.
Do you?
Right.
As you can see, we haven't really gotten anything new in the past couple of weeks for permits. We would like to note that you'll see that Marco's Pizza, which says it's under construction, did receive their certificate of occupancy today. They'll have their health inspection tomorrow, and they're planning on opening next Monday. Other than that, I know that Regal Storage is on the planner's agenda for tomorrow. And we did issue 16 additional houses out of Lakewood Manor. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns about the list?
Did Chief Harper get with you and y'all have a conversation about those EV charging stations?
I have not spoken with Chief
Will you
Harper.
Will you just reach out to me tomorrow, or I'll reach out to you so we can have just talk about it?
at
Yeah.
the coal site?
It just in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We're having issues when it comes to
Absolutely.
firefighting in 'em.
I would definitely be
Please.
very interested in what we can do to help
Okay.
our first responders responding to one of those facilities.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to item 13, city manager update.
I'm going to defer to Ms. Webb on the update. She sent me a list of repairs. I thought we were really close, and then I saw one in Timber Creek. Deb, can you give us an update? I think we're almost finished on the list, if we don't add it to it.
So as of Friday, we reached out to both contractors and asked for current list. So Matula had one that they were working on. They were expecting to complete that today. I don't know if they did or not. They haven't gotten back to me as of the end of the day. So, and then Mario Ramirez Concrete had 3 on their list. We added, they actually had 4, they completed 1. 3 we added last week, and they were short pieces of sidewalk, so it shouldn't take them long on those. And the one that they had moved forward with and not completed was a 2x4 piece of driveway. They went to do the work, and there was a truck parked in front of it. So no one was home. They couldn't contact anybody, so they had to pull off and wait. So they made contact with the homeowners, so they didn't block that truck in. But things are looking good.
So hopefully at
yeah.
the next council meeting, we'll be able to say that we're 100% complete.
God, that would be great, wouldn't it?
You better knock on some wood.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we've made a lot of progress, and those 2 contractors helped us move really quickly, so.
And Deb, on yard repairs, are we
We
making
are
the same
catching
progress
up.
on yard repairs?
We are catching up on yard repairs. We are going back, we had for a while been throwing grass seed down, which causes a lot of repeat phone calls, right? It's rained, we have mud in the street, come clean that up. So we're back to putting full squares of grass down. It makes it look neat, makes it look finished and complete, and we don't have to go back. So,
So it's probably a wash.
cost-wise, it's, sod's more than seed, but the return trips, we're not getting the complaints, and people like it with that finished look. So, I rode last Friday for about 2 hours looking for things still outstanding, and we just don't have very many left.
Yeah. And these we're doing in-house. We're not hiring a contractor for
Yeah,
that.
we're not. It takes us, just as long to go check on the contractor as it does to check on our own guys. And our guys are just moving more quickly now. So the leaks have kind of slowed down now.
Until today.
Yeah, well, overall, we were getting 5 a day on average and having trouble keeping up, and now we're.
Is there any update? I know they had the leak right there at Oak and Lake Road by the post office. That was a big one. That was,
Yeah, we're
that was going
turning,
everywhere.
You want to hear about that?
That's actually what I was trying to give an update to the mayor earlier, kind of midterm. Do you have a more up-to-date from 6 o'clock?
As of 10 o'clock. So the repair that needed to be made was to a valve that had blown out. The bolts had actually corroded in half, and the valve broke. And so that was the problem. And they got in there, and while we were here tonight, they ended up putting a new 6-inch piece of pipe in and replacing that valve. And right now, they're turning the valves back on.
So we'll have water service
So-
restored? if
Keep
it
your
holds.
fingers crossed that we hold when we pressure back up, but that is the status as of right now. They are opening valves, so, yeah.
On the way here, I rolled my window down and I yelled at them. I said, y'all are rock stars, thank you. So they're probably gonna say some crazy lady was yelling at me out of the window, but tell them thank you.
We didn't yell.
Councilwoman stuff.
We didn't yell back, did we?
No, they just kinda looked confused.
Okay.
That's good. They've been out there. They've really been,
Like for 2 days, I've seen them out.
Yeah, they've been up there for 2
yeah,
days.
they've been working shifts, so, nobody wants it fixed more than they do. And, I was saying, give me till 10 o'clock, and I think they've made it. So as long as it holds, everybody will have water tonight.
High five those guys.
Yep, okay. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Sal, folks, we've got our updates and our project updates. Y'all have any questions for Sal concerning any of the project updates?
Great job.
Robin, you have anything you want to add with your projects? You got a good description in the packet, so. Yep. All right. We'll move on to items of community interest, and we'll start with Chase.
I don't think I have anything, thank you.
All right. Renee?
Nothing, sir.
Rhonda?
One thing. Keep Lake Jackson Beautiful is gonna do a second shred day. They've got 2 trucks this time. hugely popular. Citizens, and I mean, we got citizens from Lake Jackson and all over the place, Clute, Richwood. They can just drive through, they can drop off up to 5 boxes of shreds. They are also taking eyeglasses that they're donating to Lions Club, string lights, like broken Christmas lights and stuff, and, huh? Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
so
patio lights.
the patio lights, just the string lights. So that's gonna be on October 8th. It starts at 8 a.m. and it's gonna be over, oh, on old cell phones. I know there was one more.
Like, just cell phones, or do they take other electronics too, printers
No,
and
it's
other
just,
stuff?
it's just cell phones
Okay.
right now. They're looking into doing a electronic.
E-waste.
Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
E-waste, there you go.
But anyways, hugely popular. We filled up both of those huge trucks last time. It's just a good chance to get rid of documents, and they do shred it right there. So it's not like, you know, your stuff's sitting there.
Fills up quick.
6:30 line started last week, or last time.
Matt?
No, I was gonna say to the hardworking water folks, but we already covered it.
JB?
Good night.
Not till he hands the gavel.
Real quick, I am getting, talking about e-waste, I am getting calls about if we're gonna be doing an e-waste anytime soon. And project, because we used to do them, but it's becoming more and more difficult. I was thinking that the last time we did one, we had some company out of Houston came down and, but if you can
Doesn't-
find that information, at least who we used last time, so I can share that. The county's asking, because they're wanting to do an e-waste also, so they're, okay.
Does the Texas Gulf Bank do, they do a shred thing then, I think.
That's who we
They're
do
in
with.
conjunction with
Okay.
Lake Jackson Beautiful.
All right.
They actually are paying for the trucks.
Oh, shut up.
And the other thing is that we've only have a couple more weeks of hurricane season. And Miss Seth said that she talked to some reliable source and said that we're already done, so.
All right.
I don't know who that
We're
was.
Space weather.
Oh, that's right, the space weather guy.
I second.
But anyway, but that's
All
the
I
good
can say,
thing.
everybody, hang 10.
Yeah.